All right, we are back. We are on the air. Sorry for the little delay, although it was only 2 minutes, but already people are going, "Where's Steve?" Um, yeah, we were engaged in a very interesting discussion, and I wanted to continue with it before we went on air. Uh, People will be joining us as we talk about this. I know Kyle will be joining us. He is back, and I'm reserving him a spot. So if for some reason we get 10 people in here, one person is going to have to go because I did promise him a reserved spot. But anyways, we got Chris in here, we got David, we got Jim, we got Red. So we got most of the Unholy Host podcast in here, or YouTube channel. What do you guys consider yourself? YouTube channel or podcast?
YouTube channel / podcast, the Unheavenly Host.
Unheavenly Host. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Whatever name you want to go by. What's in a name? Semantics. Right. Okay. But are you guys doing a podcast? Are you going to be on iTunes?
I don't know if we're gonna go that route or not. Yeah, we're just kind of focusing on YouTube right now.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Well, you guys are wondering what's going on tonight. For those who may not have read it yet, my friend Dr. Richard Carrier decided to write a blog on me out of the blue the other day, which was kind of a little surprising, since he didn't really ask me any questions as to confirm what my actual positions were, and I think he fundamentally got a few things wrong about what I actually believe. And his blog actually, for the first part, tends to agree with me. Actually, really does seem to agree with me. I want to get your opinion on it, but the feedback I've gotten so far is that it agrees with me on my arguments, but then he tries to make a special pleading argument. Now I will be probably, when I get a chance, writing a blog on this. So this hangout is basically to kind of get a general overview of what you guys think of his blog. I've already asked very erudite people, other PhDs that I know other than Richard, especially those that are familiar with logic, Bayesian, and just the topic in general. So far, I can safely say that it's been consistent that there's some problems with this blog. This is not to diss on Richard. I happen to like Richard. He is a friend of mine. This is not to, like punch up or call him out, but he wrote the blog on me. So I'm just kind of responding and going to point out where I think he makes some errors. So this hangout is a way for me to kind of get my thoughts together when I write the blog, because I want it to be good. I want it to be, something that does actually show to the person who doesn't understand these arguments why I believe very strongly that Richard is incorrect in this. So before you guys start this, who's read it and who's not in here?
I have.
Okay. Yeah, I've read a bit of it. Haven't finished it. I have not skimmed it, but
I read through his blog, and I also went through a little bit of the one that he linked in there for his Bayesian stuff.
Did you read the one on atheism and agnosticism?
Yes, that was the one from 2007 or
yeah. That one we're going to touch on too, only because I want to ask people about that one particular part that I'm sure you guys are aware of, that I showed a couple of you in here. It was very bizarre, and I'm trying to give the principle of charity, and I want to steelman positions as much as possible. I'm very confident in my position in all this, as you guys may know, because I've done this for a very long time. So I want to get somebody's best possible argument, or at least look at it in the best possible light. So I do try to steelman. So when I talk to somebody who's a professor or PhD in philosophy, that's what they generally do when I ask about these things. They push me, not because they're necessarily disagreeing with me, and not necessarily they're agreeing with Richard, but they do take every possible interpretation of what is said, and I think that's the best way to go to really address an argument. So no, Chucky Darwin, this is not this again. I've never done this with Richard Carrier's blog, so you go do some push-ups, Chucky. He's in the military. I outranked him. So okay, so let's just jump right into it. Let me screen share. And the first thing you will notice, if you actually look at his blogs, I will tell you, Richard Carrier definitely writes. I particularly would have broken this blog into 7 different blogs, I counted. Okay, so this was a lot of writing for a blog. I don't really know if his interpretation of a blog is the same as mine. Blogs are supposed to be succinct. They're supposed to be a page, maybe a page and a half or so, of addressing a topic. If you look up Patheos, you'll see like Without a Crystal Ball's blog. It's pretty short and succinct. You look at Hermat Mentant from The Friendly Atheist. Is that how you pronounce the last name? Mentant?
Hemant Menta.
Menta. Yeah, Hemant Menta. His blog is very succinct. My blog is very succinct because I just don't like a lot of writing. But even my longest one doesn't go more than 2 pages. This really is long, and it's written in small fonts. So I guess if you had to do a word count, it would be considerable. But that's minor criticisms. I'm not really bashing on his blog, just something I'm noting. But you guys have noted the same thing?
Yeah. Every single blog post I've seen him respond to or review a book or something like that, half the time goes thousands of words.
Well, and if you notice too, it's very wordy, lots of adjectives, lots of he uses his vocabulary to appear like he's giving out factual information, but really he's just conflating this terminology to make his point.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing with his terminology. He tends, in this particular blog especially, I don't have the skill set to discuss his mythological or mythicism blogs, right? I don't know much about the topic, so I can't do a fair analysis of that. I know you all can, especially Chris and Jim, experts at dealing something with that. I can't, but I do know enough about this topic where I think I can at least weigh in and go, okay, there are some issues, and I can see that he uses a gross distortion of terminology to suit his own narrative, and then justifies his reasoning based upon those semantic definitions. But let's got to dive into, so misunderstanding the burden of proof. So right off the bat, there's this charge that somebody is misunderstanding the burden of proof, and as you read on, he gets plainly into my name. So this is a foreshadowing of somehow that I am misunderstanding the burden of proof. Already I take umbrage to that because I'm not trying to use this as, oh, I'm right, because I know a lot of people that know these titles. These subjects. I'm reading the live chat because somebody said clickbait titles. I don't know why I superimposed that in my conversation there. No, Travis, that's not clickbait. This is exactly what we're talking about. But these topics, and not one of them, I don't think I ever had one person that I can aware of ever say that I misunderstood the burden of proof or things in epistemology. I mean, there's minor stuff that's out there, and they'll correct me on, but it's very, very minor, right? I mean, I don't have some kind of fundamental misunderstanding. And so when I'm talking about the burden of proof, they tend to agree because it's just kind of what you find in the literature. It's not really something that's that contentious. I've already asked, 2 people that are heavy into philosophy, one who is a PhD and one who's damn close to a PhD, or was damn close to a PhD, and both of them agree that burden of proof, burden of evidence, and burden of justification in epistemology are synonymous. There is no distinction between the 3. I disagree on the fact that there's no distinction at all. I do put a distinction when it comes to law. In legal terminology, there's a slight distinction, and I think now they do agree with that. But in epistemology, they mean the same thing. So, all right, I got a message here. Who's messaging me? Jesus, is that you? No, it's not. Okay.
Whoa.
SoCal Jesus. No, just kidding.
Steve, you might want to not share that for very long.
Oh,
no kidding.
Sorry, that was my mail. It's okay. What am I sharing? I don't know. I have nothing on my screen that really makes a difference.
Except for the Hangout link.
Oh, the Hangout link. Oh, that's right. Oh wow. Well, I got a cameraman on. All right. I thought I showed my email there or my messages. Okay, so in matters of knowledge and belief, everything is a probability. I'm just going to read this real fast because I didn't have an issue with the first paragraph, so not much at least. In matters of knowledge and belief, everything is probability. They who do not understand this will commit innumerable errors and waste gobs of time arguing to no purpose. This is especially evident in debates who holds the burden of proof in any given matter, which debates will go nowhere and shed no light on anything if they do not frame what is being debated as really a debate over what the probability of the disputed claim is and why. I mean, there's something to be said about that, right? You can frame knowledge and belief probabilistically, right? If you're over a certain threshold, you're justified to say you believe, right? And if you're under a certain threshold, you're justified to say you don't believe. Now, Dr. Malpass on use of reason puts a little gray area in there. He'll say that you can be like 50% plus or minus like 10 points, right? And it's a judgment call, right? And I think as we go into this, you'll see that Richard makes it to be like a line of demarcation. If you're over 0.5, you're an atheist. If you're under 0.5, you're a theist. And if you're at 0.5, who the hell knows? Because he just counts agnosticism. And I think that doesn't make any sense to me, because you could be slightly over or under one way, but not feel comfortable enough to say that you hold a belief because you're not justified to. So these go to the epistemic justifications of why you hold a belief. If I'm at 90% surety, like Steve, let me ask, or Jim, let me ask you, if I'm at 90% surety that something is the case, I would be more than justified to say that I believe that. Would you not? You can almost claim it as knowledge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. People don't realize how much 90% surety actually is. That's an incredibly high amount.
Yeah, it's significant. You know, if somebody said to you, "Hey, here, let's play a card game," and we're playing cards, and you have a 90% chance to win, you're going to believe that you're going to win.
Hell yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, so of course you're justified. But the way I'm reading his blog, and again, see if you guys read it the same thing, is that no, if you just over 0.5, you're a theist. If you're under 0.5, you're an atheist, because he makes this strange dichotomy between atheism and theism. He has this relationship such that you can only be one or the other, which is his personal belief, but then that's fine. But the problem is he puts it out there as philosophically factual, and that's just wrong. That's not how it is in philosophy. He knows this, I'm sure. If not, he should. But he's a person who is in the educational field, and he has a lot of followers. And when he puts the things out as by fiat, people take that as such. They're like, oh, well, you know, this must be the case. Well, no, it's not. But I do agree that there should be we shouldn't waste time in debates on who has a burden of proof. The burden of proof is both people, period. Two people are in a discussion. Two people have a burden of proof. Doesn't matter what the topic, doesn't matter what their positions are on it. They both have burden of proof. They're both in the discussion, with some minor exceptions. Obviously, if you're like defending a PhD, you're the only one that has a burden of proof there. That's an exception, special case they call it. Also, if you're defending something like evolution, in my opinion, and this is particularly my opinion, you don't have a burden of proof, or I would say a burden of proof to persuade somebody of like evolution. You have a burden of proof to justify it to yourself, right? But that justification is trivial, because you can just say, well, it's scientific consensus. That to me meets the burden of proof. Now, you guys can weigh in on that if you want. To me, that's how I look at it. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. I don't. When I think about burden of proof, I don't necessarily think about trying to prove it to myself. When I think about burden of proof, it's always in the context that you're trying to prove it to somebody else.
Well, it doesn't have to be, though. I mean, if you look at the theory of knowledge, for just something simple like justified true belief, there's three conditions, right? P has to be true, S has to believe P, and S has to be justified to believe P. Now, who does S owe that justification to? It's certainly not to anybody else, right?
Yeah.
It's to themselves.
Right.
So the burden of proof is to themselves on the particular case of if they're justified to hold a position or not. By the way, Brian Stevens, hey, I'm glad that you're here. Hopefully you can stick around, because we will be getting into Bayesian here in a few, and I wanted your expert opinion.
Oh, that sounds like fun. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'll definitely chime in.
All right, how about your not dumbass opinion?
Okay, I qualify for that.
Sweet. That's our standard, not dumbass opinion. Okay, so continue on. By which we mean epistemic probability, not some objective or cosmoplatonic or physical probability, but the probability that the position that we are taking, whatever it is true given the information we have at the time we take that position. Okay, I don't have an issue with that. By the way, anytime you guys have an issue, live chat or in here, just say stop or whatever and tell me what your issue is, because you might see something that I don't see. But so far, I particularly don't have an issue with this. Okay. Physical probabilities have a relationship to epistemic probability, but it is not direct. See my discussion on proving history, blah, blah. But since every position...
Right there.
Physical properties have a relationship to epistemic properties?
No, his use his relation back to his book Proving History.
Oh.
Brian actually helped me with that before my debate with GE. And basically, from what from what I remember, from what we could tell, he was just abusing the system of priors,
which kind of what happens in this particular blog too.
So yeah,
But we're going to get to Brian on that particular thing because the people I've talked to so far all seem to agree that he's misappropriating Bayesian theory. But and I'm not saying his Bayesian analysis is wrong, right? I mean, he makes a rational argument as far as Bayesian, and I don't think this makes any like huge mistakes in the math as far as I can see. I'm not that familiar with Bayesian, but I think he's misappropriating it. I think he's misapplying it.
The big issue I have, Steve, is how he comes up with. I remember doing this when we were going over it before the debate with what's the name of your channel again?
Not Sequitur Show.
No. Biblical History Skeptics.
Oh, that biblical history skeptics and unheavenly host. I got it right. Yes.
And so what he's doing, it's what Blake Junta does, but it just depends on what priors you use. So they both play a game where they choose their priors and then they follow down this road based on it, and they're justified, but they can both come to completely contradictory conclusions based on choosing priors. And I went over the math with biblical history skeptics on this and showed how Blake Junta and Richard Carrier, forgot his name for half a second there, are just doing the same thing and playing their game and basically choosing what they want to, or taking what they want to believe and then using that to show what they want to find.
Yeah, you know what? That's exactly what everybody has told me that know Bayesian so far. I have a astrophysics PhD friend who's going to be weighing on this later on, but I asked him if I could kind of quote him a little bit, but he basically said he was cherry picking, and he basically said the exact same you did.
Would you like to hear a good application of Bayesian real quick?
Sure.
Oh, sure. So here's one of the best applications of Bayesian I've heard, and I'm sitting down perhaps I can just explain this. Let's say, Steve, I have two envelopes, and all you know about my two envelopes is one has double the money of the other. So that's all you know. So I have two envelopes, and one has double the money of the other. With that in mind, I hand you an envelope, and it has $100 in it. What will the other envelope have in it?
Okay, run by me one more time.
Two envelopes I have, and you know that one envelope has double the money of the other.
Oh, 200.
So it either has 200 or it has.
Could have 50.
It could have 50.
Okay.
So
okay, I got you.
With that in mind, when you choose an envelope, it could have 50. You have an envelope with 100 in your hand right now, and I say, do you want to switch it out? So you could switch it out and get 200,
or you can get 50.
You can switch it out and get 50.
Right. Okay.
But let's say you incorporate your prior knowledge that Brian's been complaining about this, and he's been saying, "Oh man, I just don't have any money. I got to stop playing this game. I'm really low on money." With that in mind, you might not think that I'm actually going to put $200 in an envelope. Now, the law of just pure mathematics says that the other envelope, is a 50-50 chance of having 50 or 200. But using your prior knowledge that it's unlikely Brian would put $200 in, you can weight your prior and you'd say, okay, I believe it's more likely that the other envelope has 50 because I know Brian's been complaining about money lately.
Oh, absolutely. This is very similar to Bayesian analysis of the Monty Python problem. The Monty Hall problem, not the Monty Python problem. The Monty Hall problem. There's a Bayesian analysis very similar.
Yeah, and I think what we have to do is we have to look at what knowledge they're bringing in and how they're weighting towards that knowledge, because you could completely weight towards knowledge. It just matters how much you weight your priors, and the prior is the information you incorporate with the observed information you have. So you mix your prior with the information you have. And so that's what Bayesian is basically in a nutshell.
Yeah, but he's weighing it such that he's taking these low priors, or in some cases even no priors, and then using that as epistemic justification to say that there's no longer a need to have a burden of proof for that particular position. And I've never seen Bayesian used that way. I don't know how that could possibly even be used that way. But we'll kind of get into that more. But I think that's inappropriate.
I'm not well versed on Bayesian, but I don't. Everything that I've ever seen as far as determining statistical probability has been based on priors.
Yeah, but first of all, it's usually on low priors, right?
Right.
When you have no priors in Bayesian, I mean, doesn't it you start off at more of a 50-50 kind of thing?
Yeah.
Brian, I mean, have you like your expected observations based upon your
If you have
prior
no
observations?
priors, you would just go with the observed data. Like if we say the occurrence of an event is 5%, like let's say your parents are bad parents and they don't usually show up to your piano recital near a piano. they would show up to mine. And so you say there's a 5% chance, but then you could incorporate your prior information to weight towards it. Maybe this is your big recital. Maybe, there's other information you're incorporating. But just going by, you've had 100 piano recitals. They've shown up to 5 of those piano recitals. The probability would be 1 in 20 or 5%. So just knowing the probability of it, the long-term occurrence of the event, now you can incorporate other information and kind of mix your model and create a better model with the Bayesian, like using given information, like given this is your recital, how does that change the probability? Given this is your finale, whatever. So you're mixing you're taking the literal probability and incorporating in other information.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and as we go on, we're going to see that that the argument I have against him using it that way is that while using Bayesian will justify establishing your belief, right? I can say I believe this is the case, as Brian here pointed out, because of the Bayesian analysis I've done based upon my priors, right? I don't think you could ever say, well, because of Bayesian analysis here, there's no longer burden proof for my position, right? That's just epistemically unsound to me. Brian, would you agree that you could use having low priors or high priors? I mean, in this case, as you mentioned, if I know somebody to be a liar all the time, like if Dave was just lying all the time, and I say, okay, based upon prior observations, if he says he's going to do something, it's less likely the case I'm going to believe him. And I'll say, you know what, I don't believe you, or I believe that you're not going to do what you say you're going to do. That could be a justification for holding that belief or not holding a belief. But you can never say, I don't have to give a reason why I think Dave is a liar and won't fulfill his obligation when he said he's going to do it for me, right?
Well, it seems with your observations, you have kind of observed data. And so I think I'm trying to make sure I'm up to speed on how Richard Carey is using this. I kind of lean towards your position as of right now, and I'm kind of remaining a tiny bit agnostic.
Well, have you read the blog?
No, I saw you post about it, but I'm good to talk on Bayesian stuff. And I see you have it posted right now.
Yeah, and also it's in the video description. You want to go check it out real quick.
And what I know in working with biblical history skeptics to help him prepare for his debate, I do believe Carrier misappropriates Bayesian analysis. So I would not be shocked if I'd also find this to be a misappropriation.
Yeah, that's the general consensus so far. So anyways, Kyle, welcome back. I hope you had a good trip and you're well rested.
Not well rested, but I had a really good trip.
Nice. I could take that to mean giggity.
Oh yeah, those giggity.
Giggity.
But I'm just airports wear me out.
Lots of giggity. Oh, dude, I hate flying. Well, you know what? Let me say, I like flying. I don't like the process of flying.
It's just like I went to LaGuardia, and everybody's like in double speed there. It's like a YouTube video if you play it on 2x. And I'm from the South, so we do everything at like half speed.
Yeah, 0.5.
So like literally by the time I went to order a sandwich at the airport, and literally by the time I got out what I wanted, they had my sandwich out to me with everything on it. Like it was that quick. So it's just it was a culture shock for me.
Are you a slow walker too? I mean, do you kind of like?
I'm not a slow walker, no. Okay. But like I'm a slow talker. So up there it's just like blah, 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 and I just don't operate that way. Also, too, I ordered a sweet tea, and they handed me an unsweet tea with 2 Splenda packs.
Yeah, I was gonna guess that too.
That?
Yeah. They don't understand. They don't understand, Kyle. Sweet tea outside the South.
Yeah,
there's a travesty
outside the South.
Yeah, I like real brewed sweet tea, and that's not the same.
That's a good way to get stabbed. In addition to no tip.
What are you doing in New York? Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. Good to see you again.
Kyle.
All right, so we're going to continue on with this, and by the way, like I said, Kyle, welcome back, and feel free to jump in at any point. People are kind of picking through this, but the first part here, I really don't have a huge problem so far with anything said. It's not till the middle part he just jumps the shark hugely. He says, but since every position logically entails an epistemic probability, every position entails a positive assertion. I do agree with that. if you actually look and read some of Bertrand Russell's writings, he wrote a paper called On Propositions, and I don't remember the subtitle, but it was a paper explaining that in Bertrand Russell's epistemology, every position entails a positive assertion, and even a negative assertion is still a positive claim. So if you have a negative, let's say I claim that something does not exist, that's still a positive assertion. So every position, it entails some form of positive assertion, either it be a first or second order. And it's a great paper by Bertrand Russell. I made it halfway through, and I'll have to finish it one of these days, but I do remember that from his paper. So I do agree with him on that. And it means every position, whether assertion or rejection, even ambivalence or uncertainty, all is just an assertion about probability. Every party to every debate over a matter of fact is making a positive assertion about a probability. Everyone. So anyone who thinks that they're making a meaningful distinction worth arguing over when they claim things like you can't prove a negative or they who make a claim always bear the burden of evidence is simply wrong. And he's right on that. We do know you can prove a negative, modus tollens and proof by possibility. But this old adage of they who make the claim always bear the burden of evidence. Well, that's true to a point, but that's not always, it's just not only the person making the positive claim. And I think that's where these atheist channels don't go far enough. They don't tell people that, yes, if you make a positive claim, you have a positive burden of proof. But even if you don't make a positive claim, if you're weighing in on a proposition, you're making a positive assertion towards that proposition. And he says, apart from distinction of degree, there is no meaningful difference between denial or a mere lack of belief, or either of those, or the assertion of a contrary belief. Every single possible proposition with respect to any claim whatsoever is affirming a probability, and thus every position is a positive position. Every position is making a claim. Every position is asserting a belief about something, even agnosticism. Now, so far, this is exactly what my argument argues, right? I mean, Jim and Chris, you've read my syllogism, right, about atheism having a burden of proof in the second order, which so far everybody in the know has totally agreed. He's arguing exactly what I'm arguing, only phrasing a little bit differently, but the way he's phrasing it, I think is just fine. I agree with it 1,000%.
Steve, right, but watch what follows this.
Oh, it totally changes.
and then remember where he reworded what you said.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I'm saying. The first half, I'm like, if I was just reading this straight off, I'll be like, yeah, I got Richard Carrier, man, on my side. But then he just goes off the rails.
What I'm seeing, Steve, is in February a triple threat match between you, Matt Dillahunty, and Richard Carrier in a cage.
Well, if I can get
oh yeah,
if I get Ozzy with me.
Oh yeah. Oh, a tag team match. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I mean, I'm pretty confident in my position, but I still want an expert there.
In a cage.
You know, in a cage to the death, blood match, blood sports.
No holds barred, or no positions barred.
Pay-per-view event.
No holes or no holds.
Both.
At
the same time. I don't want Aaron holding me. No, I love Aaron, but I don't want him holding me. But I think he's right here. I think that every position is asserting something about belief, because if you say something like "I don't believe X," you're actually saying "I believe that I don't believe X." And again, you don't have to believe me on that, but you can go read Bertrand Russell paper on propositions, and he asserts the exact same thing. So this has been around for a very, very long time. I mean, I think he wrote that paper back in, I'm guessing here, but it had to be like in the 40s or something, or 50s. I mean, this is an old paper that he wrote. The only thing I would add on here is that denial means different things. Or the deny proposition, Bertrand Russell argues that denial doesn't mean accepting the negation or affirming the negation specifically. But most of the time, if you deny a proposition, you're saying that you're asserting the negation of the proposition. So you have to be careful what people mean by denial. And if you're not sure, just ask them, right? Are you saying that you're denying or rejecting the proposition such that you're just not accepting it, or are you denying or rejecting it such that you're accepting the negation? Most of the time, it's the accepting the negation, but it doesn't have to be that way, because like I said, Bertrand Russell argued to the contrary of that.
Right. I mean, especially whenever it's a position that you're being presented with for the first time, it's very easy for you to take that position and not accept the opposite position.
Yeah. And it's for clarity too. I mean, if I give you a proposition, Jim, and you say, well, you know, I deny that proposition or I reject it. I want clarification of myself too. Are you saying that you don't think it's true, or are you thinking that you think it's false? Because there's a distinct difference to be made. And you'll see here that this blog here relates to another post he did in 2007, where he seems to equate something similar. He seems to say that if you don't believe a proposition is the same as believing the negation, because he says that. Well, because he says strong atheism is equal to hard atheism. And if you boil it down, if you do reductionism on that, what is that entailing? It's literally saying I don't believe P equates to somehow I believe not P. I don't know how he figures that.
Yeah, no, I mean there is an overlap there, but there is a whole larger section that he's completely missing.
Yeah, I mean Chris read that, and I think Chris wanted to drop a dookie after that. It was just he cried. He was like, "Steve, hold me." Because I didn't understand it. I asked a couple of people on it. I even asked Alex on that particular one. I'm like, am I reading this wrong? He's like, I don't know what to make of this kind of thing. So, anyways, anybody want to do the next part so I can rest my voice? Anybody? And by the way, like I said, that could have been one blog post just right there. That's how short my blog posts are for the most part.
Okay. Do you want the
disbelief versus no belief? This is more Brian's area because we had a discussion on the null, and I don't think I changed Brian's mind so much as he changed his own mind after he realized he was drunk and wasn't making sense. Right, Brian?
Can you scroll up and I'll read it? Where are you starting at?
Disbelief and null. Brian, is that a safe assessment?
I caught the end of it, Steve. You're saying I changed my mind after a few drinks about the null.
No, I said it wasn't so much that I changed your mind about the null. It's just that you sobered up and realized that you might have said some things that were.
Yeah, I think that was when I first made my statements. It was with I can't remember who was on the thing, but yeah, I think after I was able to be a little more clear-minded, I made more clear statements.
Yeah, of course. All right, go ahead.
I'll demonstrate shortly that every position is asserting a belief, whether it's a denial, an affirmation, or even an expression of complete uncertainty. Every position is a belief. Every belief corresponds to a claim. But before we get to that, two more misunderstandings must be averted.
And I agree with that. Although a lot of people won't. Again, this narrative that new atheists have put out that lack of belief is not a belief, it flies in the face of what's established in philosophy. And again, I will recommend that paper to you on Propositions by Bertrand Russell, because it's not because it has a first order belief, but because there's a second order belief attached to everything. Because if you say I do not believe P, you have a belief that you do not believe P. So every position entails some type of belief.
Right.
First, that fact that every belief state entails an affirmation of a probability is the case even if that belief was literally just formed as soon as the debate was engaged. Most things we have no beliefs about until we think of them. And upon thinking of them, such as being asked to, we evaluate what we believe upon encountering that consideration. But that is not merely encountering a claim contrary to some status quo of disbelief, let's say, because when we have no belief, there is no status quo. There is no disbelief in what we've never considered. Such a thing is logically impossible. We can only form beliefs upon evaluation of the data and forming a belief. And there is no difference in such an evaluation between affirming or doubting what we've been asked to consider. Both are taking a position, both are making a claim, both therefore bear the burden of evidence.
Yeah, and this is again the exact same point. This is what I'm saying. He seems to be agreeing with me wholeheartedly. I've actually made the argument that if you have a dichotomous relationship between I do not believe P and I believe P, which is a dichotomy, right? In classical logic, either one you pick is a position on the situation, right? If I say, hey Jim, my car is blue, you have two choices. You can believe that my car is blue, or you can not believe that my car is blue, right? I mean, it's really a bivalence there, right? So either one is a position on the statement that my car is blue, right? Because this narrative that if you say you don't believe is not some kind of position, I think is fundamentally wrong. And of course, Kerry agrees with this, it seems, right? But again, disbelief can mean multiple things. Disbelief can actually mean that you've tried to evaluate something and you just can't, right? That's normally what it means. Some people may use disbelief as in not holding a particular belief, in which case innocence would disbelieve a particular thing. But I don't think that would be the case. So I think disbelief mostly should be used for you've tried to evaluate, but you're unable to reach a belief on that. So you disbelieve it. But innocents have no burden on anything because they don't know about a proposition, right? Graham Opie's approach.
Let me ask what might be a dumb question, just so I can kind of understand.
No such thing as a dumb question. Yeah, there's a lot of dumb questions.
There's a lot of dumb questions. Just so I can understand where you're coming at from this. When you say that the atheists have a burden of proof, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's a guy that comes up to me and says, I can make a fairy appear out of my jacket, and I say, I don't believe you can, does that mean I have a burden of proof to prove that he can't pull a fairy out of his jacket?
What your burden of proof is
no, because
you know, go ahead, Jim. See if you can answer.
You're not because you're not accepting the negative in that. You're just simply stating your disbelief. So you fall into the non-belief category, which entails both atheism or afairyism in your case, and agnosticism about fairies.
So
I would word that
when you say atheists bear a burden of proof, which atheist are you talking about?
Yeah, let me try to be clarifying that, Kyle. Okay, so you have two issues going on here. One, you have something dealing with speech act theory. Okay, the person is making a claim. He is expressing an utterance. Okay, has a locution that he has what is it in his pocket? A fairy in his pocket. He has an onus to give a burden of persuasion to try to convince you of that. Now, you have no burden whatsoever on your burden of persuasion, right? You don't have to convince him that he doesn't. You have no burden to demonstrate that he doesn't have a fairy in his pocket. Nothing like that. The only onus you have is to yourself if you make a self-assessment by saying, I don't believe you, but you can just easily justify that in your head as I don't believe you because, well, I believe fairies don't exist. I've never seen a fairy. We have no knowledge of fairies whatsoever. I can relate stories of the Coventing fairies that were all made up. So you have reasons why you don't believe him. That's your burden of proof. That's it. That's done. That's all it takes. That's your epistemic burden. But you owe nothing to him.
Okay.
Because when we first started this, I made it clear that I asked a bunch of experts on this. That burden of proof, burden of justification, and burden of evidence all mean the same thing in epistemology.
But you're not saying that they bear the same burden, like the same level of burden.
No, his burden is much greater.
Okay.
Yeah. There's definitely different levels of burden. But this is what when I find that the new atheists out there in these atheist channels, they want to eliminate all burden, and I have not met a person in epistemology that agrees with that. So, anyways, the last line.
This may rankle some and confuse others, but it will undeniably clear by the time you finish reading here.
Yeah, I think it gets more muddled actually as it goes along, considerably so. But it does confuse people. But so far, like I said, I think would you all agree that he actually, if you just read these two things, these portions, he actually would be confirming exactly what I've been saying for all this time?
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question about that. So, okay. So, anyways, Brian, do you want to? Are you still reading the thing, or do you want to read this part? Because this is kind of your area, the fallacy of ignoring priors.
Sure. Let me.
Okay.
So, however, that fact does not give safe harbor knowledge to those who want to beat people over the head with it, because many times those who gloat that everyone bears the burden of proof ignore the fact that a substantial burden has in fact already been met in background knowledge. This is the fallacy of ignoring priors. Priors meaning the probability already entailed by our background knowledge, often represented by B or K in Bayesian equations. Every claim has a prior probability. Every claim. Both positive and negative. Both certain and uncertain.
Yeah, and that's true. But you'll see here coming up that he puts the argument out there that because of the priors, the burden of proof of atheism has already been met. Which is disingenuous and is just a complete bastardization of what you use Bayesian theory for. But anybody could do that. Anybody could assert something like that. The only time, though, that's acceptable when that would be the case of a scientific theory, scientific consensus, something as established fact, right? In those cases, then yes, we have priors. If somebody said, hey, the theory of evolution is bullshit, right? I have no onus to them whatsoever, right? They need to demonstrate because of priors, right? We have scientific consensus, right? So the scientific consensus says, look, we have all this evidence. We have all these priors. It's a confirmed model. The work has been done in that case. He's using that to raise atheism to the same epistemic standard and level of that, which I've never seen anybody try to do before.
Well, would you say the same thing in reverse for somebody who is asserting the positive for the theory of evolution?
A theist could do that. A theist could say, hey, look, you know what? I have all these arguments from Aquinas and Thomism and whatever, ontological arguments, modal ontological arguments. The work's already been done. But then you go, wait a minute, but those aren't really great arguments. Or just by saying, well, we have no observations of something, therefore the work's already been done, because that's what he's really arguing. We have no priors. Okay, we have no priors of aliens, right? We have no priors of aliens existing. So are we justified now to say that the onus is completely on the person asserting that aliens don't exist, or aliens do exist? Sorry, no, of course not, right? Because one, you could use a Drake equation to justify their belief. But we have no priors of aliens. So how could you say, well, the work's already been done because we have no priors of aliens, therefore there's no burden of proof, it's already been met. The onus is completely on the person trying to demonstrate that there are aliens. No, if I believe there's no aliens, I need to justify that. Now I can justify that by saying we haven't seen aliens. I think that's weak. But Brian, and what am I saying making sense as far as Bayesian?
Well, Bayesian is amazing. Bayesian is makes amazing statistical models. But I'm going to send you something here maybe in a second, Stephen. You can show this if you like. But I've communicated with Blake Junta, and he sent me his Bayesian calculator. And I really just think he and Richard Carrier are doing the exact same thing. Richard Carrier, I was reading down further, he talks about making his posterior distribution. And he's just bringing in what he currently holds true. And then Blake Junta brings in what Blake Junta believes, who's a Christian. And they both say, look, I am justified in my belief because of what I already believe. That's circular. And I think that's the misuse of it, is to say, here's everything I already believe. And it's basically, my opinion on this, in the way I'm seeing Bayesian being used by both Blake Junta and Carrier, my opinion, is that both of them use it to show that their bias doesn't need justification. And
So with all the priors, all the prior knowledge that we have of the dying and rising Savior gods, does that mean that Jesus is statistically more likely to have existed as a dying and rising Savior?
No. But I think you make a good point there, Brian. But my specific example would be, because we haven't seen aliens, does that mean that I can just say, well, I believe aliens don't exist because the work's already been done. I have no burden. That makes no sense to me. And yes, if you believe Santa doesn't exist, you have a burden. And if you're over the age of 8 and you don't believe Santa doesn't exist, something's wrong with you. Okay, something's wrong with you. If you can't justify your belief that Santa doesn't exist, you need help. You need help. Okay.
Oh, so you could justify it by saying that your parents buy you better gifts when you still believe in Santa.
There you go.
How dare you all? Everybody knows Santa exists.
Well, I know Santa exists. I watched my mom doing him one night on Christmas Eve. But anyway,
we had Rice Ray on here that proved that he did, because there's pygmies.
Yeah, exactly. The little elves. Okay, so continuing on.
Oh, where are we?
I have demonstrated.
I have demonstrated elsewhere that every debate over any claim to fact is ultimately Bayesian, and that no other means of justifying the epistemic probability of a claim is valid that does not simply recapitulate, approximate, employ, or reduce to Bayes' theorem. See proving history, blah, 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 blah. Background evidence is evidence. So there is simply no avoiding the fact that already considered background information already entails a probability for any claim's truth. And we call that a prior probability.
Yeah, he's basically saying for everything you believe, you have prior things that go into your reasoning why you believe certain things. Okay.
Right.
Hey, Brian, before we continue, let me ask, is every single epistemic probability claim always boiled down to Bayes' theorem?
Not that I've heard of. That might go above my pay grade, but not that I know
of course, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that particular claim per se.
I've always found it ludicrous myself, but
Luda.
So to continue, When someone is given some new information, meaning new to them, which can simply be something that they never considered before, or even entirely new data, the question then becomes how much or in what way that new information changes or updates the prior probability. You then have a posterior probability, the probability that a claim is true given all the information you have, which must include not just background information B, but also anything that's just been added to it or called to your attention, which often gets designated with E in a Bayesian equation. Those two sets of data, B and E, together must encompass all knowledge, all data, all information, all evidence available to you. Bayes' theorem then dictates what probability is then entailed thereby.
You want to kind of address this, Brian, on what they mean by posterior probability? You don't have to get into the actual math, but how it's written out. But
well, you heard the example earlier. Sorry, I was interrupting there, and I didn't mean to. Sorry, Jim.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I heard something, but my thing cancels out the other ones. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. The thing with this is when you think about what we have going on right here, it's like the envelope problem, because you first know it's 50-50, but then you update your information when you find out that I don't have that much money. You're like, okay, it's 50-50, but whether it'll be $50 or $200, but with the new information, you make the posterior distribution of what it's likely to be. So you're updating your information. Although you know the exact probability, it's either 50 or 200 with a 50-50 chance, you would update your probability on what it is based on new information, i.e. a posterior distribution.
So you're saying, like, say like these envelopes that the money was in a stack, right? And these things started in a succession. Like, say it started off with 50, then it went to 100, then it went to 200, then it went to 400. There was another one there. You would use that. Would you consider that posterior knowledge or prior knowledge in thinking that the next one had $800?
Well, yeah, you could say at some point the money's going to run out, and I could tell you that it's a 50-50 chance, and just knowing that I don't have enough money, like, it could be double or nothing, and
right.
just by pure, it's either double or nothing. But when it doesn't have like $10 million, you're going to know that it's not going to be that. So even though I tell you it's either this or this, well, there's only two probabilities, X over N. So it's 50-50 either one, but you mix your information with that and make your posterior.
But what I'm saying more is, like, whenever you open up the first couple envelopes, like, you don't have any prior knowledge that there's a pattern there. But then as the pattern develops, then you start getting this new information and applying it into that conclusion that, hey, this next one probably has $800 because it's doubled every envelope that I've picked up off of this stack one by one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But would that be prior or posterior?
Yeah. I'll have to analyze it more.
Fair enough. Yeah, we might one day have a separate hangout for Bayesian, because I know very little about it. I just understand the concepts, but not the math per se. I mean, I've looked into it a few times, but okay. So let me read this. So when someone is given new information, meaning new to them, which can simply be something they've never considered before or entirely new data, the question then becomes how much or in what way that new information changes or updates that prior probability. Okay. You then have a prior probability. The prior probability of the claim that's true is given all the information you have, which must include not just the background information. Or did you already read this part? No, you didn't. No, you did read this part, right? Yeah,
I think I may have.
Yeah, let me read the next part. So what we learn from this fact is that our arguments over any claim to a fact are really just arguing over three numbers. In fact, sometimes the dispute is solely over the lone number, a single probability, as often the parties to a debate will agree or concede agreement on the other two. Those two numbers are the likelihood of a new evidence on the claim being true, the likelihood of the same evidence on the claim being false, and the prior probability of the claim being true or false, since each, the prior probability of it being true and the prior probability of it being false, is the logical converse of each other. And therefore, only one number describes both, which is why all negation is assertion. Saying that a claim has a lower prior is literally synonymous with saying it has negation of a high prior. Either way, you're making a positive assertion. I kind of have to break this down a little bit. See, I think, Brian, the way I'm reading something like this is that he's more arguing the likelihood of a proposition being true or false, but not understanding that likelihood of a proposition of being true or false is not everything that goes into what epistemically makes somebody justified to believe whether the proposition is true or false.
I agree with
that. Difference there.
I agree with the way you're viewing it.
Yeah, it's bizarre that he's making everything into this weird scientism and type approach that even if we have something that's okay, it's 55% chance, right, that it's true, right? Are you justified to believe that is true then? Well, I mean, I would argue, well, probably not. But the way I'm going to be reading this paper or blog is that he's asserting that anything over 0.5, you're justified to believe. And I don't think that's the case. And let me give you a counter argument to his approach here. Because you've read further down, so you know his actual Bayesian argument, and maybe you can incorporate this into that. But let's say I have a deck of cards. 52 cards in a deck, no jokers, no wild cards. But I take the top card, and it's a black card. I show it to you, and I say, hey, Brian, is there a higher probability that the next card in the deck is going to be red? You're like, yeah, of course, right? But then I ask you, do you believe that the next card is red? Well, no. But yeah, but you have a prior here. You have a prior that the card was black. Well, yeah, but it's not that much to justify saying that you believe the next card is red, right?
I believe you're on the right track there.
Okay, because I think he's relating everything down to just, well, we have prior, so what? It doesn't mean that you have to believe something. I've lost 5 hands in a row. Are you justified to believe that your next hand you're going to win because reasons?
But then again, there's a lot more priors you have to take in. Like, does that person believe in luck? Does that person have an experience with this pattern before? What is their standard of belief? I mean, there's a lot of things.
Well, I think though you have to be. I mean, luck to me it doesn't qualify for justification. Now there is something in epistemology called luck. Okay, there really actually is. It has to do with the Getty problems, but it's not like uses the same way what you're thinking.
But I'm thinking like
it's sort of
anecdotally, like personal.
Right. And that's, but see, to say a luck is like guess, and guessing can never be justified, right? You can't say, I believe it's the case because of a guess. I'm never justified, I think, rationally to say, I believe it's the case because of luck, right? I believe I walk under that ladder, I'm going to get 5 years bad luck. I think that's not something you could be justified.
Gotcha.
Okay. But I do want to emphasize that don't throw out that word luck, because it is used extensively in epistemology and the Getty problems to determine whether something is knowledged or not. Okay, so I won't go into the mechanics of Bayes' theorem further from here, which he kind of does. Apart from my book, Proving History, which goes into considerable detail about Bayes' theorem works and how to apply it. I've also written numerous helpful blogs. If you want to learn more about it here, the principal point is that the prior probability for every claim, even if it's 50%, such as when there's no prior information bearing on the claim's probability. But again, what does he think happens if you only have 50%? What is the case if you have a proposition and theoretically can be exactly 0.5? I mean, would you, in his dichotomous world, you're a theist or an atheist, but you're at 0.5. What do you do then?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's got to be some sort of system of priors for everything, right? I mean,
But Jim, his argument is that if you're greater than 50%, you're a theist. If you're less than 50%, you're an atheist. Now, there's approach to that you can take. Okay, thanks, Reds. There's an approach you can take for that, and Dr. Malpass does it on use of reason, where he makes a similar argument, but he allows for a fuzzy logic, right? Not so much of this dichotomous relationship. He allows for, okay, there's different degrees of belief, and you could be slightly more to the right, slightly more to the left. You can think, like in the case of the cards, yeah, there's one black card up. You can think that it's more probabilistic that the next card is going to be red, and you'd be right. I believe that probabilistically is more likely the case that the next card is red, but to justify saying that I believe the next card that gets turned up is red is bullshit. So if you were right on that cusp, if you were right on that 0.5, right, I don't think is feasible, but for arguendo's sake, what would you be? You want to be a theist or an atheist? So even his own argument fails on that regard.
Well, in your explanation, in your analogy with the cards, what makes that more or less than 50%?
Well, because you have one less card in the deck and it's black.
I'm sorry, because what?
You have one less card in the deck and it's removed.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, I mean, if you shuffled really well and you have 5 black cards come up, then you have 5 less cards in the deck, and it is more likely the next card will be red, probabilistically speaking.
Right.
Again, Brian.
What about something like a coin toss? Just one initial coin toss.
Well, each event for a coin toss is a unique event, right? They don't accumulate. Right.
So
if I toss a coin 10 times in a row, right? Each event is 50-50, right? But the next time you flip it, it's still 50-50.
Is there any prior knowledge that would not be associated with the test?
What? Not in unique events like that. That's why I think people on roulette make that mistake. But what, Brian?
Steve, let's say we're playing and you deal a black card and you say, hey, Brian, we're going to play a game where you bet. You put down $5 and I'll give you 5 if you're right. So you deal up a black card and you say, what's the next card going to be? So I'm probably going to say red because, it's more likely to be red. But here's the thing.
Marginally.
I know you cheat, Steve. So I know the law of that deck, and that's the prior. Like, I know what the deck is. I know what the odds are with the cards in the deck. But I know Steve has been constantly beating me, and I believe Steve's cheating. So then I say, okay, with this information, I'm going to bet black because I know it's more likely based on this.
That Steve's going to cheat.
Yeah, so I'm kind of my posterior distribution of the probability of what the card's going to be, and I'm leaning towards black because I know with my information, it updates. I know basically the hard odds on it, and then I mix my information of you cheating.
Yeah, no, a perfect example of that would be 3-card Monty. Because they cheat in 3-card Monty. So yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that sees that Steve cheats.
Yeah, I'm a cheater. Cheater. I'm too good. I don't have to cheat, man. I'll beat y'all. I can beat the computer on level 1 chess, baby. Level 1. Level 2, no. Means like on the easiest level, I can actually beat half the time I can beat the computer. I'm going to skip some of this because it's just not really relevant. He's going to go on. He's going to talk about the Jesus mythicism stuff. So I'm just going to skip all that if you guys don't care. But I'm going to get down to here. The same holds for atheism. Well, you know what? Maybe I guess I should read this because it does tie in. I've repeatedly made this point. I've already made this point repeatedly about the historicity of Jesus. For example, contrary to what many overly enthusiastic atheists will say on the internet, historians who affirm Jesus existed do not bear the burden of evidence. What? Wait. Is he saying to what I think he's saying? The historians who affirm Jesus existed do not bear the burden of evidence. Well, yeah, they do. Anybody who he just didn't he literally just get something to send saying that anybody who has a position has a burden?
Yep, anybody.
So what am I missing here? Because of centuries-long academic consensus that Jesus existed entails having met a prima facie burden of evidence. Okay, but here's the problem with that. Even if it's the case, and I'm going to accept arguendo, by academic consensus, Jesus existed. I think he did too. I'm not a mythicist. Okay, so yes, they made a prima facie burden of evidence that it is the case that Jesus existed. That has nothing to do with the epistemic burden of you believing that or not.
Right. All prima facie means is like on the surface, like what it appears to be. I mean, that's
and you could use that as a justification. You can say, hey, Chris, why do you believe that Jesus existed? Well, because I believe that century-long academic consensus that Jesus existed entails having a prima facie case. Okay.
I believe that you can only use that as justification for persuasion, and only for somebody with low standards of acceptance of belief.
Yeah, that's a yes,
standards.
You could use it for persuasion, but that's not going to be very persuasive, to be honest with you. It's like you said, it's a very low.
I mean, not so many people. Yeah.
But it is convincing to yourself. Look, a lot of people don't know science. I mean, look, for example, Kyle could probably not relate to you why special theory of relativity works, right?
The fuck, I can't.
Well, and for
how dare you, sir?
What about
for Hangout and you explain the Lorentz contraction to us? It'd be great. But you agree though that it's scientific consensus, right? So all you got to say is, well, shit, I believe special theory of relativity because you know what? Scientists have a consensus on it.
A lot of Christian apostates, especially atheists, who they really embrace the Jesus mythicist position, just because it's something that's directly opposite of what they believed, and it's something that they rush to, especially whenever it's something awful like Zeitgeist or something.
Yeah, I don't think mysticism is that prevalent, to be honest with you. I have not met a historian or an expert in the topic that really affirms it.
No, not a historian or an expert. I'm talking about just
in the atheist sphere, yeah, of course.
Yeah, in the academic sphere, I could name for you every single PhD mythicist that has a relative degree in the field.
There's two, I believe.
One hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I gotta admit, I'm really impressed by Tim O'Neill's arguments. You know, he's a smart dude, and he makes a very good case that, of course, it is the case that some entity named Jesus probably existed. And he didn't even correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know Carrier's argument that well, but I do know enough that the most he comes up with is about a 1/3 probability that he didn't exist. Correct?
It's 1/3 probability that he did exist.
Oh, 1/3 probability he did exist. Okay, so 2/3 probability that he didn't, based upon his own priors that he sticks in there, right?
Right, and they're all of his priors. The way he sets it up on the historicity of Jesus is he sets up all his evidence with these elements, which constitute parts of what he's going to add into the equation. Yeah. For example, in his background for justifying priors, he has several elements, and most of them that I saw have some pretty flawed issues. Like, for example, one of the elements goes over dying and rising gods, and establishing that as a mythotype for which a mythical Jesus could have been based. Basically. I've gone through two of the gods that he mentions, Romulus and Zalmoxis, and shown that his analyses of them are flawed beyond all reason.
Yeah, I think mythicism goes up the wrong tree. I think that if you're going to steal Matt Smith's argument, you accept that Jesus existed, then you explain why you don't believe that he was who he said he was, because I don't think you're undermining anything by doing it that way. But if you just say, you know what, I'm just going to say Jesus existed, therefore all Christianity is wrong, I think you're taking a very cheap way of trying to disprove Christianity.
Yeah, well, and even Robert Price, another the only biblical scholar that is a mythicist that I know of in the entire world. He even says that using what he calls the scorched earth approach, he says that is one of the worst ideas ever. And that's not how mythicism should be used at all.
Yeah, and I'll take your guys' opinion on that. But I am really taken aback by the things that just because the academic consensus is that that Jesus existed, there's still a burden of proof as to why you were justified to believe that. Even the theory of evolution, I have to say why I believe the theory of evolution is true. There's a burden of proof to be met there, and that burden of proof is, well, because of scientific consensus. And I think he's not understanding the differentiation between that epistemic burden of holding the belief and the evidential thing that's going on here. So, did we lose Brian? You scared him off? Okay. In other words,
he left the call.
Okay. Hope he comes back.
Hey, Steve, I'm actually going to have to head out here.
You too, Brute?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of stuff I got to get done tomorrow, so.
All right, that's cool. I haven't got to the McRae stuff yet. That's down at the bottom here.
Well,
right here, and he spells my name wrong here. Can you hold off like 10 more minutes?
Sure.
All right. So let me just rush through this and get down to that part. So so he says basically the same holds for atheism. Atheism has already met its basic prima facie burden of evidence. Well, I think again, let me make this clear. He makes an argument that atheism has already met a prima facie argument or burden of evidence to be a rational position, is the extent that I think he can only go to, right? that doesn't make the fact that holding that position rational, unless you say something along the lines of, well, atheism already met a burden of proof that it's rational, that position. So I hold that position because it's rational. Now, that's not a strong reason to hold position, right? But you can't just say, well, I believe atheism because it's already been demonstrated that atheism is true, right? Or it's consensus that atheism is true. Where is the consensus that atheism is true?
I think the consensus in the world, if we're going to go that way, is that atheism's wrong. And
that might be the case if you make up like globally, sure.
Yeah, even in the United States, we make up what 13 outed atheists make up like 13% of the population in the United States.
Yeah, very low.
The consensus is that we are wrong.
Well, but this would only work, Chris.
I'm agnostic. I'm on the fence.
Yeah, I know. I'm converting a lot of people to Gnosticism. I'm trying. This actually would only seem to work to me. And again, I was talking to a actual philosopher on this, and we agreed upon this. This would only make sense if he was talking to his own group. If he was talking to like a little local community, right, of atheists, in their little world, they've already determined that atheism is true, right? And so this would make sense in that regard. Right, because he doesn't have to go through the whole rigmarole. Everybody's already accepted that atheism has met some established burden of proof, and it's up to the theist in their own group. I don't take umbrage to that, but he's not writing for his group. He's writing a blog out to everybody, and that's ridiculous to say that atheism has come by some kind of consensus. That's just no, Richard, no. And then he says, is therefore incumbent now upon anyone who wishes to still affirm God's exists to bear a burden of evidence proving it. Well, again, you don't prove it, Richard, but if you affirm God's exist, yes, you have a burden. But if you affirm that they don't exist, you still have a burden. It is invalid to say atheists still bear some burden now. No, it's not. That's bullshit. Because they've already met that burden. Says who? I mean, this is some by fiat argument, ipse dixit. That is, this is the case. No.
Even a good number of atheists, and I'd honestly are at least a good chunk of them would argue that they haven't met the burden in several ways.
Yeah, like I said, the burden is to make sure that they are justified to hold the belief. But anyways, let me get to the meat of this real quick, because I know you got to go, and we are getting kind of long.
You mean to the me of this?
Yes, the me and meat. For example. Steve McRae has been debating several folks on this for a while, including most relevantly on an episode of DE Converted hosted by Ariel Avino, which was fun, by the way. I really enjoyed that discussion. It wasn't a debate, really. It was just a discussion. That's all. I don't know why he called that a debate, but McRae unfortunately adopts a dysfunctional epistemology in which it is only possible belief states are 100% true and 100% false, which frequently contradicts psychological fact and requirements of sociological utility. What? Okay, let me clarify this for this, because this is where I wish Richard really would have asked me. There's different degrees of certitude of a propositional belief, right? I can say that P is true, but I can say that I'm really convinced that P is true. I'm just somewhat convinced P is true. I'm not very convinced P is true. I'm certain P is true. These are measurements of conviction on the proposition, right? But in the case of the law of excluded middle, you can only have two positions on the proposition: true or false. There is no half of the truth. You know, half false in this kind of logical thinking. In other forms of logic, this is where I got kind of in trouble with Matt Dillahunt, because I don't think he was reading what I was typing. We were talking about fuzzy logic and things that don't have the law of excluded middle or the law of non-contradiction, such as paraconsistent logic or stochastic logic kind of things. Now, Chris, have I ever said that that in allness, in generality, that belief states are 100% true or 100% false? Fuck no.
No, you never have.
That would make no sense.
I don't think I've ever seen you use a percentage.
I avoid them. I don't like even the quantification of the whole theist thing over 50, less than 50 kind of thing, but it makes sense and it's not inappropriate to use. It's just, I'm not comfortable with that much, because I hate quantifying beliefs, right? How many beliefs do you have of your belief? Is it a measurement of units?
That's my biggest freaking problem one of my biggest problems with his use of Bayes just in all these inappropriate places, because you're assigning arbitrary values to things that don't have values.
Yeah. I don't get this. I think possible belief states are 100% true or 100% false. No, we can be 50% sure or 50% convinced that something is even true. I can say, well, I don't hold that the position's true, but I'm about halfway there, right? I'm not completely the way there to say that it's true, but I'm making progress. Or I can say, look, I absolutely know it's not true, in which case I have zero belief state. So I don't know what he's going with that. So hopefully people in live chat can kind of figure that out for me, because I don't get it. And by the way, Lucifer Almighty, he does acknowledge agnosticism is a belief claim, and I agree with him. But that's a debate for another time. In respect to the burden of evidence, McCrae focuses on the analytical fact that all beliefs, I would say epistemic probabilities, require evidence, and therefore every assertion bears a burden of evidence in a fundamental sense, which simply means we all must have reason and good reasons for whatever positions we take, positive or negative. And as he said before, this includes not believing, if our position is to be any sense valid, which is correct. But McCrae then this is where he jumps the shark. But then McCrae then obsesses on this to the point of overlooking that this being analytically true is moot when it comes to amounts of background evidence that have already been met, that evidence have already met the required burden. He is stuck in the fallacy of ignoring priors. His dysfunctional and unscientific, non-probabilistic epistemology may be responsible for this. Okay. I'm gonna weigh in on this, and then I want your guys' opinion. This goes back to what Brian said. The priors only will get you to, is it rational to have this kind of position, right? Do I say, I believe that the next card is going to be black because you cheat, right? Because I have prior observations, you're a cheater. That's fine. But he's making the argument that prior observations of atheism, such that we don't have any experience observing gods, and he makes the argument about other gods existing and then we're not existing in mythology, which is a good argument, don't get me wrong. But that doesn't get you to the point where it's consensus. That doesn't get you to the point where you're by fiat saying you no longer have a burden of evidence. He's really elevating the position of atheism to a done deal, to an epistemic status of certitude, or I wouldn't say certitude, but an epistemic status of consensus, like a scientific consensus or academic consensus. And that's just bizarre to me. And he says, I need to acknowledge that low prior's belief for God is already entailed by our background knowledge. Well, yeah, I do acknowledge that. That's one of my arguments that I use to support strong atheism, Richard. That's, I mean, you guys have heard me argue low priors as an argument. When people say, what's a good way to justify strong atheism? Logical problem evil, evidential problem evil, divine hiddenness, low priors. Those are one of the things I add in my reasoning to be a strong atheist, right? So I do acknowledge that.
He does make a good point with that Hitchens line, though, in the next one. How do you respond to that?
Oh, no, he doesn't. Bert Poole. Did you read what I sent you from Bert Poole? Bert Poole destroys that. How so? I'm interested in that. Because he's applying Hitchens' razor by fiat, saying that by it's an all-encompassing weapon, that if you don't present to me any physical evidence, I can dismiss your claim. But unfortunately, when we're talking about these topics, the theist is not trying to posit physical evidence. They're positing rational argumentation. They're positing reasoned arguments. That is a form of evidence, right? So you cannot say that the theist is not giving you evidence. You can argue it's not good evidence. You can say that's wrong evidence. But if you say, hey, why do you believe in God? And I get into something about the argument from contingency or modal ontological argument, which Chris and I are going to do something on hopefully soon. I'm giving you evidence.
What's the threshold for what is considered evidence?
There could be the whole bunch of types of evidence. There's testimonial evidence, there's anecdotal evidence, there's explicit evidence, there's a whole bunch of different types of evidence.
I mean, is there anything that you would consider doesn't reach the form of evidence? Was somebody just saying like reasons for things?
Guesses are not evidence. You know, if I say, why do you believe that? And you say, well, because I'm guessing that is the case.
But if they have a firm belief in something, no matter how ridiculous it is, you count that as evidence?
No, evidence is what makes you have that firm belief.
So to build on that, is there a threshold of priors? I mean that would tip the scales one way or the other. I mean, because in this case, it seems like he's saying that given the history of evidence that atheists have, that it's just a done deal. And I wonder where he would draw the line, and if theists would also meet that threshold.
Yeah, I think, see, to me, he's making an argument for strong atheism, which is fine. If he was to say, look, these are my reasons why I hold a strong atheism, this is what Bert Poole goes off on Richard for, because he's like, is this the best we have to offer? Is this what the best atheists have to offer? If he was using this as an argument for strong atheism, I would be on board with him. But he's not using this as evidence for strong atheism. He's using this to say atheism has already been consensus. Atheism has already met its burden of proof. Job is done. No more work. All you got to do to be an atheist is say, you're an atheist. You don't have anything. Right. So, no proof on that. Which is
so it's strange how somehow that whole side of my community, of the atheist community, has gone from we have no burden of proof to we've already met our burden of proof.
Yeah. Huge difference. Again, if I were to say, hey, Jim, I believe in evolution because the burden of proof has already been met, such as science has confirmed it as a model that works. I'm okay with that. That's perfectly fine to justify that, because I may not be a biologist, right? I may not know shit about biology, but I believe it's still to be true. You can justify it that way. And if he was arguing his case that way, I would really have no umbrage with it. But he's arguing the same thing. He's saying that, oh, well, if you can say that evolution is true because of consensus, you can say that atheism is true because of consensus. But there is no consensus on that. Only among his little group of atheists, they have a consensus. Agreed.
Not to mention that the consensus exists for different reasons.
Sure.
Science, because evolution has a plethora of scientific evidence. More, I mean, the amount of evidence we have quantifies more peer-reviewed research papers than we have on the theory of gravity.
Oh yeah, and let me address with the whole Hitchens thing a little bit more in depth before you go, Chris.
Yeah, I wanted to note, because I ultimately find Hitchens' razor to be kind of self-defeating.
It's a helpful tool, but it's definitely not a be-all.
Oh well, Chris, you said you had to go, right? It was nice nice seeing you, buddy.
And I love Christopher Hitchens. Don't get me wrong. I think he was one of the greatest atheist orators of all time. He is the role model for the archetype of atheist activism, and in a good way. I mean, he was a very brilliant man.
Thou shalt not take his name in vain.
Yeah,
Chris.
But I think Hitchens' razor is literally just a very. It's a tool to be used, but it's not a be all end all. And he like I said, he literally puts it out there as well. If somebody has not met the burden of evidence, burden to believe a claim, no further burden of evidence is needed to reject it. Well, no. That's not true. Okay, because he's conflating a burden of persuasion with an epistemic burden to believe something, right? If I want to convince you of something, Kyle, if I say, I was abducted by aliens last night, I could give you all the reasons why I have, right? And you could say, well, you know what? You haven't met your burden enough to convince me. You haven't persuaded me that to be the case.
How much did you smoke, Steve?
Well, hang on. Exactly, though. If you say, look, you haven't convinced me that'd be the case, but I don't believe you. And I say, well, Kyle, why don't you believe me? And you say, well, you were high as fuck last night. I would be like, oh, yeah, you're right. That's your justification for why you don't believe me. So you met your burden of proof for why you don't believe me. It still has a burden of proof attached to it.
But is that just me explaining things, or like, I don't know that
burden of proof is an explanation.
You know what I mean?
Of why you believe something or don't believe something.
But is it required? Like, am I required to have a burden of proof?
For principle of rationality, it is, right? And not so much to the other person, but to yourself. But if you're in a discussion with two different people, in a dialectic or dialogic, it's called, depending on which kind of thing you're doing.
Let's say I didn't know you were high the night before. Let's just say you came up to me out of the blue and said that you saw aliens. I wouldn't believe that, now. And
you don't have to you have no onus to me why you don't believe it.
Right. Yeah.
You so yourself why you don't believe it. I call that transportability. That's my own term for it. Your burden of proof of why you don't believe it to yourself is transportable.
Sure, but I guess
to tell me.
I guess the ultimate point is, with Christians, their whole reason for telling you is because they're trying to get you to their side, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they have a burden of proof. Well, if I don't care about you coming over to my side, do I technically have a burden of proof? Because I mean, it doesn't matter to me if you.
There's different burdens of proof that you're conflating there, though. You have no burden of proof for persuasiveness, right? You don't have to refute him. You don't have to give him any persuasive argument whatsoever. Two things are going on here, though. You have a burden of proof to yourself of why you don't believe, which is simple, well, because you're a nutter kind of thing. You can say that, whatever your proof, whatever your reasons for why you don't believe. You have to have a reason why you don't believe something. It's not, you don't create these things out of thin air, right? There are reasons why you formulate beliefs or not beliefs. Now,
remember the dragon episode, Steve?
Well, okay, he formulates his beliefs, right? He has reasons for it. Now, we could argue those beliefs are not justifiable or they're not rational for other reasons, right? We can push back on that, but we have no onus to do that. If he's doing a monolateral approach where it's just one person making an assertion, like for example, when you're defending a thesis, you're the only person defending that thesis. Nobody else has an onus. Or if you're giving a speech somewhere, right? If I'm giving a persuasive speech to an audience, not everybody in that audience has a burden to have a persuasive argument back to me, right?
That's kind of my point. Like, if let's take the dragon guy, right? If he's saying these things, like he sees real fossilized dragons in the Sahara, is it right to expect me to have a burden of proof against that? Like, because they wouldn't be equal, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
No,
to think
not
that.
against it. No, not against it. Why you don't? So why do you don't believe it? You don't believe it because you think it's all bullshit, right? And you think it's all bullshit because it's pareidolia. You know it's pareidolia,
right?
Pareidolia. So you are justified to not believe it. That's it. That's
so whenever he puts up these satellite imagery, and you see this what looks like a dragon, those images meet his burden of proof, and that's it. But it does not require that it meet yours. But as long as it meets his burden of proof, his standard for acceptance.
But that's where you go. But that's where if you do want to persuade him, that's a great way to attack their arguments. Is to attack their justificatory conditions.
Right.
I think that's a wonderful way to attack an argument. Hey, you know what? Are you really justified to believe that? Matter of fact, that's the whole basis behind street epistemology. Think about it. That is literally street epistemology. What are they trying to do? They're trying to convince a theist or somebody who holds a belief. Are they really rational to hold that belief?
But the great thing about it, though, is that when doing that, is you get these people to come to these conclusions on their own, so that they don't reject them so quickly. They slowly come around to it by their own reasoning.
Yeah, and I like the way they do that a little bit because it is very similar to the Socratic method.
We're not talking about that dragon guy.
No, not he's delusional. I'm just gonna let's see here. I'm gonna show one thing, then we'll move on.
Dragon Tales.
Okay. Well,
You gotta take off.
Yeah. So shameless plug before I do.
Yes, please.
Biblical History Skeptics is my YouTube channel. Sunday, instead of our normal Bible reading, we are actually going. Me, Brian, and a few others are actually going to be going through one of Carrier's lectures and tearing it a new one.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
Brian, you already know about this.
Oh, damn. Well, don't tell Carrier. He gets wind of this, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian, did I tell you, Raphael Latester, one of the mythicist lackeys, actually downloaded both of my papers again that are over Carrier's misuse of Zelmoxis and Romulus. So they are definitely going to be making their way back to Carrier before long.
You're gonna get on his radar.
It's already started.
But tune in for that. It's going to be around we were planning it for like 8 p.m. EST. So we'll
competition.
All right. So
I know.
What competition? I have like 10 viewers.
I'm joking.
We gotta get you more. All right, there's two more things I want to show real quick, and then kind of wrap this up or talk about whatever.
Okay, I'm out.
So thank you, buddy. This is another blog that he wrote. Matter of fact, the blog that he had on me, which was like 7 blogs in one, has a link to this particular blog, and this was about his agnostic or atheism blog entry, and it's really bizarre. It's got a lot of mistakes, but I find this to be the most interesting thing. And again, I really want you to really think about this.
Steve, did that say monkey butt up there?
Monkey butt, yeah.
First,
monkey butt.
First sentence out of the bag, I see a fallacy, like just
monkey butt and bumpy poo. Yeah, it's you can read what his argument was, and I'm not saying his argument was horrific, but the summation makes no sense to me. And anybody else I've asked, they're just bizarre what he's trying to get at. So here's the summation of this. Therefore, there is simply no such thing as a quote soft atheist who is not also a hard atheist, or a hard atheist who is not also a soft atheist. If you don't believe in any God, then you always would believe both. Okay, let's think about this. And I have asked a few people on this who are experts.
I'm hard sometimes.
Occasionally, my age infrequently.
I'm hard right now.
By the way, Carrie won't be down the 27th. It was actually today. I had my dates wrong. I apologize to Brittany. I was really bummed out because her and I were going to go down this Sunday, and she's going to spend time with her family, but hopefully I can hang out with her next week. So the second part is true. If you believe there are no gods, that also would entail the quote unquote soft atheist position, which is lack of belief that gods exist. That's nobody questions that, right? I mean, right? If you believe not P, you don't believe P, right? In other words, if you believe it's not true, you don't believe it is true. Simple. But the first part here, think about this tell me if I'm wrong here, Jim. He says that if you do not believe P, you also believe not P, or if you do not believe P, you also believe not P, which means that if you do not believe there's any gods, you believe there are no gods. Wait, what? Huh? No. That completely doesn't work that way.
Right.
I used to think that way.
For one, there are billions of people around the world who only believe in one God and immediately discredit that entire proposition.
Well, if they believe in one God, then we're not talking about theists. We're talking about we're talking about atheists here, right?
But does he or does he not use the plural?
So if you lack a belief, if you're a theist, you lack a belief. Well, if you're a theist, you lack a belief in atheism, right? But in this particular case, when he's using the terms atheist, he's saying that anybody who doesn't hold theism to be true, right, it's saying that theism is false and that atheism is true. That's literally what he's saying by this.
Yeah.
This blows me away. And everybody I've asked to read this, I'm saying take your most terrible interpretation. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe he's using similar definitions. Maybe he's using these words differently.
Under his presumption that there is no soft atheism, yes, that is correct. But I mean, there.
Well, I forgot to present this. Yeah, I don't think he's using these terms any different. But he's like, hence all unbelievers are both atheists and agnostics, and neither can deny either name that can never be separated. Bullshit. They're completely different positions, dude. Right? Agnostics take the position that you're not justified to hold a proposition to be true or false. That's ubiquitous in philosophy and outside of philosophy, in psychology, everywhere else. It literally is. The agnosticism is the psychological state of being agnostic on the proposition, which means you don't take a position. And what he's doing is saying, well, you don't take a position, but because you don't take a position, you've taken a position against it. No. Right. That is just wrong, dude.
Well, because I mean, he's discounting, I mean, what all weak atheism, entails, which isn't just agnostics, but also those who haven't even been presented with the proposition yet.
Yeah, well, like an innocent, right?
Right.
He doesn't make it
like babies and rocks.
But like babies. Oh, by the way, you want to make your announcement?
I am an ex-rock atheist. I'm proud.
He's seen the light. He's seen the logic, and goes, "Yeah, you know what? I don't think that's a good thing."
I don't know. I made the assertion the very minute that I was presented with the idea. So I mean, I don't remember how many drinks I had.
Brian, you're upset by that? To find out he actually thought about it?
Too, Jim. We need more rock atheists.
Oh gosh.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Well, you know what, Steve? When I first saw your post in philosophical atheism, I clenched a little bit. I thought, oh shit, now Carrier's got Steve in his crosshairs. Because this guy, if you dare cross him or contradict him, you will be ripped a new one on his blogs. O'Neill, the guy, the historian that you guys had on your show.
Oh, they hate each other.
Decimated him.
Jim, did you just say?
Not to mention Bart Ehrman.
Okay.
Jim, did you just say you're agnostic now?
No, hell no.
No. He believes there are no gods.
What is he not anymore?
He's not a rock atheist.
I'm no longer a rock atheist. I no longer believe that rocks are atheists.
Oh,
Basically,
I believe they are Roman. I believe they are Roman Catholics.
makes sense.
Yes.
Well, I know some Roman Catholics that are rocks. Does that count? They're all in red pill religion.
Richard's always been really cool to us on this show, though. I
love Richard, and again,
I don't see this getting ugly.
Yeah, I don't either. And I started this off saying, "Look, Richard's a friend of mine. I'm hoping that he takes this in kind. I mean, he decided to have a blog against me, and I'm having some pushback with him. But I don't at all disrespect him in any way, shape, or form. I mean, again, I don't even get into his whole mythicism thing. I happen to like Richard." But I'm sorry, he is fundamentally flawed on a few things, and people are going to point it out. He doesn't have to agree with it, but when he gets, I tell you this is for undisputable. If he gets my position wrong, there's no argument to be had, right? That is not a debatable subject. He literally has got my positions wrong, and he said things that I believe that I don't believe.
Invite him on the show.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he'll come on eventually. Yeah,
okay,
no,
Kyle,
I'm happy talking about this.
Okay, Kyle and Steve, this is a segue. I have found the most perfect guest for your show.
Oh no,
I'm
not high right now.
I'm not high enough for this. What?
That's fine. Okay, this guy claims to have debunked the scientific method, and he thinks that being gay is influenced by diet.
Oh, good grief! You can eat.
I diet on penis.
You can eat your way on.
He's right.
Okay,
He's
well,
right.
I've eaten a few things sexually as well, but that doesn't make that doesn't make me heterosexual, does it?
If you have a diet of penis, that's exactly right. He's dead on.
Which foods do you think makes you gay? By the way, I want to avoid those.
Penis.
If possible.
Penis. Penis.
Okay, it's an estrogen influenced diet that has a lot of soy.
God!
Right? Yes, he's
soy boy.
Guys.
Yeah, sorry. Don't buy into that bullshit at all.
Who is he?
Jan Irvin from the Gnostic Media Unspun podcast.
Hold on.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
That's like asking.
Let Kyle write that down so I can finish this.
Shane, what?
What was it called?
Jan Irvin. Okay, let me spell it out for you. Jan Irvin. IRVIN. Gnostic Media Unspun.
Yeah, we're gonna check that out. All right, one last thing. Okay, go ahead.
This guy just jumped into my DM for Messenger. He must have saw a few of my posts, and this guy went berserk. I mean, I've been friends with him for a while, and I used to listen to his podcast about 3-4 years ago, and I'm starting to see a lot of anti-science.
Really trying to debunk the scientific method, anti-science.
I love that.
Yes.
We'll take him.
Hey,
Smitty says,
you know him?
Rebels. That's good, Smitty.
Well,
that's funny.
I know
Fruity
about
Pebbles.
him because I know the group that he used to run with.
Can you contact him?
Oh yeah, I've got him in my DM right now.
Contact him. Give him my email address, live@nonsexshow.com.
All right, let's finish this up, and then you can talk whatever you want.
Hey, could you put it in the Hangout comments? I don't have a side chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from the illustrious and ever erudite Bert Poole. One of the
love him.
Oh God, he's freaking brilliant. By the way, I'm not doxing him on any of this, but do you know what he does? Do you know what his expertise is in?
I don't know.
He works for a very big name movie company doing CGI and animation. He's the head of the entire department.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Very big name, IMDb wise. So yeah, he's a bigwig, and he's just absolutely brilliant. And we go way back. I mean, Bert and I have had great discussions. I just love talking to him and listen to him. But he says, Stephen Craig, can I tagged him on this? He said, Stephen Craig, can I hate you for making me read Carrier's prose? Holy fuck, I hate his cadence and grammar. Okay, bit of a personal attack there, but funny. He says, to me, the background is the base that is merely granted in the event that there is no objection to swinging on to business, but is assumed to be justified in the same way that I trust my doctor can raise to awareness the justification for a prescription. Sure, right? This is saying, well, why are you taking the drug? Well, because my doctor prescribed it to me. I trust his opinion, right? It's met the burden of proof because an expert opinion. Ironically, he cites Hitchin with a quote that is the defeater, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. What justifies the background he wants to assert?
Right.
The fact that he stipulated it as the prior justified background or an appeal to consensus. How does that fare for the flat earth that was common knowledge? It's not a get out of jail card, free card for claims. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. He's appealing to a consensus of what?
Yeah. So
that atheism has met its burden of proof.
Yeah. At what point, like what information was given that met that burden?
Yeah. Would you say this? I mean, Jim, if a bunch of theists got together, and again, if they did it locally, I wouldn't have an umbrage with it because, again, speaking to a local group, I did discuss this with Malapass for a while today, and we had a great discussion on this. And in a local group, that's fine. But if a theist outside their local group said, "Hey, Jim, the burden of proof has already been met with theism. The evidence has already been out there. There's consensus among theists that God exists. Therefore, theists have no burden of proof to be met. It's on the atheist." Would you not say, "Are you fucking out of your mind?"
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And given the vast amount of quote unquote evidence that has been put forth that might be personally justifiable to each theist, it is not justifiable to me when they're trying to convince me of their position.
Yeah, exactly. Why is that such a hard concept for some people to get? I don't get it.
It's not.
You exactly could not be more spot on with that. I mean, and when people say, well, it's met the burden of proof for me to believe it. Okay, that's where you go for the attack point. That's where you say, well let's examine your reasoning here. Okay, well, my cat told me it's true. And you'd be like, well, and you think that's good reason? Hey, by the way, cats don't talk. Oh, well, yeah, I guess you're right. I have no reason to believe that. That's how you change people's minds, unless they think snakes can talk. Then who knows? But I love this part here. He says, seriously, what the fuck, atheist? And you got to remember, Bert Poole is a pretty hard atheist, right? He's very atheist. He says, is this the best we got or have for the agnostic? Insisting that they be labeled Huxleyan, or insisting that they have a burden because our background priors have already been established. And by the way, I'm not a Huxleyan, and he knows that. What are the reasons we have to be an atheist that Steve can impugn that renders him irrational? What the fuck? We are dancing around, not offering him reasons to think it. Methinks this frustration might come from a number of good atheists having shitty reasons for being atheist. And I agree with that, Bert Poole. You know what? I would love to have discussions about why we hold these positions. Steve, why do you hold your Gnosticism? Okay, let's talk about that. I don't get asked that much. But that is an attack point, right? That's something you can say, let's validate your reasons. Maybe I can convince you maybe to become more strong atheist. I got to tell you, and I've been telling Kyle, I've been so disenfranchised by theists lately. It's you fucking have no idea how pissed I've been getting at some of these motherfuckers, right? But then I see something from Richard like this and going, well, you know what? I balance it out because atheists can be just as irrational sometimes. They see it just as much. But yeah, I've been angry at some of the things I've seen from theism. Just outright angry.
Well, it's like you said, nobody has asked you, why you hold your position of agnosticism. And that's the problem is that you can really tell somebody's sincerity in their desire to actually know your position by whether or not they take the time to actually learn your position before they try to refute it.
Yeah, and it's a complicated discussion. But
right,
I think
what's so hard about asking somebody what their position is and actually getting them to explain it to them before you just assume and attack?
Yeah, absolutely nothing. But you'll find that my reasons are pretty blasé for the most part. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not good reasons, but they're similar to the reasons why people hold to weak atheism, right? Why people say, well, I'm not comfortable saying that I don't believe there's a God, but I'm not saying there is a God. And they'd say, well, I'm an atheist because of that, because of colloquial definitions. And I'm not arguing that they can't do that, but their justifications for that are very similar to the reasons I do. I call like evidential Agnosticism is basically, I don't believe either way because there's not enough evidence to support a position to take either way. And a weak atheist would say the exact same thing. They would say, well, I have really no evidence either way, so I'm not making a claim either way on it being true or false, right? So it's pretty similar to that. So I don't fault weak atheists for their epistemic position. I fault them for being disingenuous by saying that one, that's atheism when it's clearly not in philosophy, and two, that they shit on the agnostic position when they have the agnostic position. They literally are the exact same freaking thing as agnostic on that. And I've even proven that using logic. I literally have proven that using logic. And they go, well, okay, well, logically it's the same, but so what? And I'm like, okay, then why are you shitting on why are you saying agnosticism is a shit position? If you hold the exact same thing for the exact same reasons, you're just calling it atheism.
Well, because it's been parroted and conflated for so long that's just what it is colloquially now. That's just how it's commonly accepted, and that's just what people run with. I mean, nobody takes the time to actually understand, what it is that they're saying when they're claiming a position, because they, for the most part, agree with the other people who are calling themselves atheists. But they generalize it too much, and whenever they portray themselves to be something in like, say they walk into a philosophy group and they portray themselves to be atheists, and somebody points out that they're agnostic, they just lose their mind because they feel like they're being misrepresented because they've conflated it for so long.
Yeah, that says something too. If you think about that, because if you go into an atheist convention and something and you say, well, you're agnostic, and they laugh at you, but then you say, well, I'm holding the same position as a weak atheist, epistemically, even for most of the same reasons. I mean, there is an epistemic difference, but the justifications are the same. And they say, well, okay, well, then you're basically a weak atheist. And you say, yeah, it's the same thing. Under your paradigm, I'm a weak atheist. Sure. Oh, okay, then everything's cool. Then why call yourself agnostic? Because that's what it's called in philosophy.
Right, and you call yourself that, like I said before, I've said it in another Hangouts, because that's the position that best represents what you believe. And other people will call themselves atheists because they are leaning more towards the side of God's non-existing, but they're still weak atheists. They still,
yeah, and I get that.
But they feel more comfortable associating themselves with atheists.
I don't have a huge problem with that. Genetically modified skeptic kind of makes that same argument, and I get that because they want to normalize atheism. So I really don't have a huge issue with that. My issue is if they don't understand the differences, and then they get on somebody who does, and it's just like, just stop. It's like, you can have these things for your reasoning, but understand the topic, and then go, well, I understand that's not how it exactly is, but I'm going to do more like abusive notation kind of thing. I'm still going to call myself an atheist, even though technically it's not in philosophy, but I'm going to abuse notation a little bit and just make it a semantic thing and call myself an atheist to try to normalize it. Okay, that's a good argument, people. But you still have you still get out. You're not absolved of the problems that come along with it, though. Obviously, though.
Who? By the way, just as an aside, who won the last debate between the trophies? I'm just curious.
You know what, dude? I hate to say it, but they both did. They actually came to an agreement. I came to an agreement with them. David agreed. It seemed like the live chat agreed. It seemed like there was a kumbaya moment, and people were actually saying SG was making sense. SJ was making good arguments.
I was with her on this one. Yeah, I was with her on this one.
But she came around and she actually, her and Red Venture have a meeting in the minds, and they both agreed that maybe it's not so much bad to have a participation award of some kind, but as long as there's a differentiation in the type of award. So you don't have like everybody getting the exact same thing. You have people getting the #1 trophy award, which is huge, and then everybody else gets like a little ribbon saying, "Hey, good job." There's nothing wrong.
Go look in the live chat right now. 30 seconds before the show started, that's exactly what I said.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that was a general consensus. And I didn't see a problem with that. I thought SJ made really good arguments. I thought Reds did a wonderful job.
On the poll that I put out on Twitter and YouTube, it was like it's like 40-some% said no, 20% said yes, and then the rest of them were undecided. So it was pretty heavy on the no.
Yeah. Now, do you want to ask who won on the Electric Universe thing? Because it was clearly the Electric Universe guy.
Oh yeah, I didn't ask about that. How did that go?
Oh God, it was brutal.
Was it?
It was painful. Yeah.
Why?
Because I brought George Newcheck in, and his background, his strength is electrical engineering, and he obliterated the poor guy. I thought I was going to cry. Arn's a nice guy, but he just got his shit pushed in, and he basically, regressed to, well, I'm not a physicist. I'm just relating the Thunderbolts project and trying to relate EU the best I can, and yet we both try to explain to him, yes, that's fine, but you're actually believing this position, and we want to know why. And he really had no answer to it. And he said, well, I'm going to have to look into it more, and maybe he might change his position.
I hate that. Aaron's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy. No. And I told him, I said, dude, we're not like shitting on you as far as your knowledge, because, this is hard stuff. And even I can't relate the stuff nowhere near like George can. And I said, we'll get an actual physicist on who purports these things. I know some people like Thornhill who purports EU theory, who is one of the big advocates in the movement. And I said, we'll have him come on and talk to George. It should be George or some physicist. But I'm more concerned about epistemology, and I'm concerned why Aaron believes electric universe when there's no reason to, when all the evidence we have goes against it, and we have theories that work. So why believe it?
Listen to this. I got by the way, guys, if you have something that you would like to come on the show and talk about, we're opening up once each week a show like surrounding you guys and your passions, your beliefs, whatever you want to talk about. And it's called The Discussional. You can go to tinyurl.com/nonsecme. That's NONSEQ me, and fill out that form and we'll get back with you. But Steve, there was somebody that left one the other day, and I thought I'd read it to you and you tell me. It sounds interesting. You tell me what you think. They said that I'm a biologist, and the opinion that gender, in the way both liberals and conservatives understand it, is no more existent than religion. I also believe that the chromosomes argument is based purely on a willful semantic misunderstanding of the word gender compared to the word sex. Furthermore, I also believe that the conservative concept of masculinity and femininity spawned the liberal understanding of gender as an existent and relative label in addition to sex. My stance tends to be nihilistic in the sense that I don't see the need to label everything and assign behavior profiles to arbitrary biological markers. Identity politics, to me, on the other side of the spectrum, are meaningless exercises in absurdity. Female is not nurturing and male is not strong. I do not believe there's any kind of inherent link.
Well, first of all, okay, this is my positions. I do believe, gender is something that is more fluid and up for interpretation. I do accept there are two biological sexes. That is a biological sex. However, there are ways you can relate classifications using chromosomes, right? If you say, well, you have Klinefelter syndrome or Turner syndrome, where you have an XXY or a X not or X0 chromosome makeup, that those can be considered to be different sexes in that schema, but they don't, as far as I know, they don't have different sexes using that schema. They people attribute it, but they don't have names to them. Klinefelter is not a sexual category. It's a genetic disorder, right? So it's Turner syndrome. It's a genetic disorder. So these are not biological sexes just because based on your chromosome or that the fact you have a Y chromosome. There are genes from the Y chromosome that can get transposed to the X chromosome. It can happen. So I don't think that chromosomes are really a great way to determine biological sex, but gender could be, gender's your outlook, right? I could be gender female and have a phenotype male. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's perfectly fine. But he doesn't think so.
I'm having to clarify it, but gender to me is like it's more society influence, right? I mean, if you see someone from the back, like let's say you see a woman from the back, you can't see their face. Like what makes them a woman? It's about like what you feel, like if you have a guy that, it's so complicated.
No, I do understand that. Those are your fifis, but no, I think it's more than that. These are not just feelings. I believe these are fundamental brain states of the mind. If you have a gender dysphoria of such that you associate with female, even just social constructs, right? gender is still a type of social construct. You have gender roles, which are social constructs.
And when it comes to gender too, it really depends on, whether it's, how you look at somebody, like you were talking about looking at them from behind, or how somebody looks at themselves.
Yeah, but I mean, we all identify as male. I mean, even Kyle, who's gay, he doesn't identify as a female. He doesn't think of himself as a female. I think he likes being a man. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I like being a man. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I feel like a male. But I could see somebody who says, you know what, I don't feel like a male. I feel very feminine. I feel very female-ish. I want to dress in pretty clothes and play with Barbie dolls and do all the things that women do. Okay, what's wrong with that? So gender is not the same as your biological sex. I do agree with that, 100%.
I agree, Manifold. Destiny is savage on those issues.
What does he believe?
Destiny's completely behind the concept of gender being something that you construct for yourself.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Which I think he might be a good pairing for this particular person who doesn't seem that's.
Yeah. The difference is that there are some people like, remember what was that couple we had on, the Cummingtons? Who were they?
Oh yes, man. They're still posting right now. As we sit here, they're typing a comment again.
Really?
Every day.
Oh my gosh! I gave up on them.
Every day I get comments. They're fighting with Mr. Atheist now.
I will never forgive you, Kyle, for having me host that night. And like I just get into like 30 minutes before, and I go to research these guys, and all I see is like ex-Christian transgender couple, and I was like, oh, cool! Like this is gonna be awesome.
Right. Here's the thing. That's the way that it was supposed to be. Like it was supposed to be a show about how they went from Christian to not Christian, and their journey within transitioning. You know what I mean? Like that was supposed to be the central focus.
So much hate him.
Oh my God.
How it got into where it went, I have no clue.
You think people have hated Kyle and I before? Like the flat earthers and shit. Oh no, there's been nothing
actually,
that would level their vitriol with you, Jim.
I'm
glad, like me.
I'm glad the show went the way that it went, because I think a lot of information needed to be disseminated. Also, if you look at the comments under that show, there was a transgender who knew his shit, had documentation after documentation.
Yeah,
blew those two suckers out of the water, and I was glad to see it.
Yeah, I do agree with them on some points. I disagree with them others. I was just kind of upset because you had a couple people, and Jimmy was included, that was just kind of coming in for 10 minutes, watching 10 minutes of the program, and being pissed off there was no pushback. And I'm like, I'm just running the discussion. I'm just asking the questions. Jim was much more in your face kind of thing. And I didn't want them to get pissed off and leave. Right. I mean, they had to have some kind of advocacy. Jim didn't understand that for some reason.
I didn't have
why he was bothered by that.
I didn't have a problem with the way that it went. There's some things that have been brought to the light, like about them that, again, from Kiwi Farms,
after fact,
Kiwi Farms had some things on them, and
but after the fact, right?
Well, I was made aware of it after the fact.
Yeah, okay.
Kiwi Farms is one of those things that unless you go digging for something, you can't really. Everything that I like looked up on them and heard of them, it was about their journey together and it was all just like spiritual. I knew that there would be like some conflict because of the extent of the spiritual level they believe, but
right,
not to the level that went. But as Brian said, I'm not upset that it went the way that it did. But yeah, them and Mr. Atheist are going at it pretty hard.
I was getting some hardcore hate mail from
Steve. Hold on one second, Jim. Steve, Team Skeptic messaged you on Facebook.
He said that, but I'm trying to see. Oh, there he is.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Now it came up.
I was getting hardcore hate mail from people who were like, well, why would you even give those people a platform? Like, why would you even interview those people? Why would you even agree to co-host something like that? And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like the knowledge that I had of them, I had no knowledge that they were this visceral, like just awful. I don't want to use the term Uncle Tom, but I have coined the term Uncle Tron. I don't know if that's okay or not. but I'm going to use it.
You have to think about it this way. I get a lot of that too with the amount of people that we have, the wide variety of people that we have on here. And you can't ever be afraid to have those conversations with people who are like that. You know what I mean? If anything, right. it goes to, for anybody that might be on the fence or anybody that might follow them closely, it's good to see them get challenged. Like with the incel thing, I had all kind of hate, like mail saying that, I can't believe you're platforming people like that, but it caused a conversation within that community, and it's something that needed to be happening, and we're not done.
Not everything they said was horrific, but some things had more pushback. But it was Captain Griffith in the live chat right now. She was the one leaving all that stuff, and she knows her stuff. She's been through this, so she left a very, very detailed responses to them and very well thought out. So if you ever get that back on, I think Captain Griffith would be
Captain.
Hells yeah, Captain.
Yeah, no, you got to have those conversations though.
Yeah, that's why I get upset when people just kind of go and start ragging on the conversation, going, well, Steve's not giving enough pushback. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to drive them away here. Right. I wanted to be able to ask the questions, and that's why I had Jim. Jim could be the bad guy.
Tyrone's iron chair.
Usually I'm the bad asshole. Kai was on vacation. I wanted to be the good guy for a change and not be that guy that reams people. Yeah.
No. What is the difference between giving somebody a platform and having a discussion with them? They can't be the same.
They're the same.
Well, because you can have a discussion with somebody without exposing that information to tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, you can have a platform and not actually have a discussion. You can have a one-sided, conversation kind of thing.
For what we do, they're one and the same, though.
Yeah. I don't see much of a distinction in our particular case. No.
Well, it's not like you're promoting their ideas. You're trying to figure out what they believe and then push back on it.
We're trying to present their ideas and then show why their ideas are incorrect. And
correct.
And it's like with the flat Earth. You may have people that are thinking about, or they're on the fence, right, about joining flat Earth. Maybe they're jaded, or they have questions. And if they watch something as ridiculous as it is having a conversation with a flat earther, they could watch that and say, well, you know what? I see how ridiculous they look. I don't want to look that ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how I think that's something to be said for that. And again, I'm not going to say that they had no good points, but they did jump the shark quite a few times, and I think that they unfortunately put too much of their evidence on one, questionable studies, and two, personal anecdotal evidence, rather than addressing the fact that other people may have different experiences.
No.
So
Twinkie.
I thought the most interesting thing, real quick before we get to TS, was that should we have kids allowed to have hormone therapy or transgender operations? That I think was a far more interesting discussion.
Where did you come down on that?
You know what? It's a hard call. Honestly, I don't think children do have the mindset to make these decisions. Even though they probably do believe that the way they do. And unfortunately, what sucks is that if you're going to have hormone therapy and all this other stuff, it does make sense to do it before puberty. But these are irreversible things that are damaging to a child's body.
They're irreversible.
They're pretty much irreversible for the most part.
You can stop them, but I think because I saw Destiny in a debate about this actually. He was debating this, and what he said was that the research points to that being a beneficial thing, and as long as you have the supervision of a psychiatrist or some kind of medical professional that's making the call that this child is suitable for it, and you have them, it can't be just the kid and the parent's decision, essentially, is what he's saying. You know what I mean?
But then again, you have these other identity disorders, where somebody feels that their leg, and I made this argument in that video, that their leg below their knee doesn't feel right and they need to have it amputated. Would you allow, say a 9-year-old to have the leg amputated just for the sake
No. I think those are two completely different things. I think you're talking about a child and how they feel about themselves. You know what I mean? It's an identity thing, and that's what leads a lot of to a lot of suicides, I think, in the transgender community.
And that's a good argument.
They're trapped in that in that mindset, and if you're able to alleviate that, I think that you've got to do that.
Well, Mark made a good argument too on that, though, and now I don't know if the validity on this, but the argument is sound. He said that a lot of people, once they reach the end of the road and they have the surgery or whatever, and they're still not comfortable with their body, then they have nowhere else to go and they'll still commit suicide. There might be validity to that, but that doesn't negate the fact that there might be people that once they reach that point, they're happy at that point. I know a lot of people that have had surgeries and hormone therapy that are very happy with themselves now.
Right? Yeah, I mean,
it's
people come to wrong conclusions all the time, and there's nothing to say that people won't come to the wrong conclusion about changing their physical appearance or changing their hormones will fix that.
Yeah, sure, I'm under the impression that adults can do what they want, basically,
and that's why I think that's why I think it's important that you have a medical professional, making that call, that ultimate call, like somebody that can evaluate their mindset and is trained in that. You wouldn't just let the kid or the parents make that decision outright and then go with it just because they want to do that. You have to have something like a medical, even a team perhaps of quite a few professionals that make that ultimate judgment call.
Yeah, that's what I recommended too, a panel.
But you say evaluating their mindset, but it's been proven that the mind changes and does not finish developing for many years, after they would be, making this decision.
Sure, but as Destiny was saying, there's from what he quoted, there's research pointing that it's a beneficial thing, and more times than not, it turns out that it's a positive, not a negative impact on the kid.
But and I think that everybody's right on this. But the downside is that you can never know one way or another until it's later on the line. You're trying to make predictions to the future that this child is going to be happy with the results.
Yeah, I would have to know the degree of certainty on that, or some kind of statistics showing what the. I mean, because are you going to say that anything over 50% is justifiable, or
I think it has to be a little higher.
I think if you see a reduction in if you see a reduction in the suicide, if there's a reduction in that sort of that thing where either you have the threats of suicide or actual suicides, then either way you cut it, it's a tough call. But I'm for
try anything, right?
I'm for lowering the people feeling down. You know what I mean? So if that's a thing that does that, then I'm okay with that.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but most people that commit suicide in the trans community, it usually starts, in puberty, like low teens to mid-teens.
And there might be clinical depression too. It might be unrelated to
right. So what they were arguing though is that the people were bringing in like 7 and 8 year olds, like they're talking about these little kids, like we're talking about like young children.
Yeah, look, if you're around 14 to 16,
I think you're talking about, Kyle, is like people who are already starting to express their sexuality and start to already go through these hormone changes.
I have no data on when kids start like genuinely bringing this up. I wouldn't know, but that would be something to look into. I don't
10 or 11 people.
I don't know the age on that, but
I would say this. Look, I'm okay if they reach a point where they do something hormonally. I will never be okay with a 13-year-old something doing a trans operation.
Oh yeah. I don't think anybody would be. I think though, starting to me, you could probably do wonders for somebody's emotional state that feels like they're trapped in the wrong body.
Yes.
By making steps towards that, by starting, either that form of therapy, so that they have that to, they know the process is going and they don't have long before they can, hit that age or whatever that is deemed by a medical professional. Sure. But it's it might be more of a psychological thing. Just they know that the process is going and they're not going to be trapped in there forever. Because I think that's where the depression hits, is that they think that they can never get out of that, that body.
And what most people got triggered by before we got to the other people most people got triggered because I was adamant about this, and Mark was right about this. Sex change operations don't change your sex. They physically do not change your sex. You can never biologically change sex. Now, a lot of people in the social movements wanted to like cover that up and basically say, well, it's a psychological thing. You have to believe that you're changing sex because it's a psychological thing. Therefore, it's almost like a placebo thing. Okay, but that doesn't change the underlying fact that you're still not biologically
right.
When it comes to like a gender thing, sure.
From what I understand, it's like it's more of a body thing. Like when a trans person looks in the mirror or something, they look at their body and they think that that's not the body they belong in.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Right,
but,
right.
Captain Griffith, welcome, and Team Skeptic, and.
What we're talking about
Jim's talking, so everybody has to focus on Jim now. Jim, go ahead. Everybody, all these new people, we got. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hi, new people. I'll shut up.
No, you can't. I'm just kidding.
It's Griffin, by the way, not Griffith. Griffin.
Oh, Griffin. Oh, Griffin. What's in the name?
Yeah, really.
Is that is it Griffin? Isn't that the name on Family Guy?
No, that's Griffin. It's actually my mother's maiden name. So
got him Griffin. We also go by what's your other? Is it M?
May Bowen.
May Bowen. That's right.
Yeah.
What say you, Captain Griffin?
Oh, that was. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for those two. Just in the first few minutes, like their personal stories. Just that's. But yeah, it's really sad, and you see a lot of that. And I think a lot of that is like what happened to is it Lana? What happened to Mark's wife is I think that's a lot of the reasons, more of the reasons why like there's a lot of trans people committing suicide.
There, right? I mean,
like she lost her entire family. She lost her like all of her friends, pretty much everyone, her job, just pretty much everyone abandoned her.
She's so nice too, but God, did they go after Jim? Holy shit!
Oh, he came on my on my Bowen channel, and he just he did everything he could to be an asshole to me.
Wait, you had them on your channel?
Just in the comment sections on one of my videos.
Okay. Funny thing, because Mike Winger brought this up in his a secular case against LGBTQ that Jimmy and I went to part. He brings up a stat saying that X amount of percent of the homosexual and LGBTQ community is prone to drug abuse, to alcoholism, to suicide, and he's putting that up there as a marker, or a hash mark against that community. But what he fails to realize in that is that the reason that those statistics are higher in that community is because of people like him telling that community that they aren't good enough or that they're wrong. So actually, his book that he's trying to promote there is the very fucking reason that those stats even exist.
It might have a backfire effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and very many people's depression in the LGBTQ community period is not sourced internally. It's externally. It's from societal pressures to conform to their idea of what gender and sexuality should be.
He also said that one of the negatives for being gay was the potential for anal prolapse. I just want to put that out there. That's a true thing.
Well,
that's not a true thing.
I think it goes even.
It's not a joke.
No, I heard him say. I heard that before with some people, and I'm like, first of all, don't they recognize that heterosexual couples do that as well?
Yeah. No, what are you talking about? What?
And does that
I mean, on a good night if she's drunk enough, but
not
whatever.
God's people. Not God's people.
So actually, this brings up another thing. What the strange the thing that I took the most exception to with what Mark was saying is that he thinks that like the Christian whole anti-gay thing is the reason we have trans people. That's the thing I most took exception to, because he even said that the reason he transitioned is because he was a lesbian, and he transitioned so that he'd be a straight man, so he wouldn't have any shame over being gay anymore, or a lesbian, and like that's actually very telling over what I live in Canada, so we don't have a lot of that problem. I mean, we have an atheist preacher in one of our churches in Toronto. So
America's full of.
How does that work?
Wait. What?
Yeah, there's the United Church. One of the United Churches in Toronto actually has an atheist preacher.
Yeah, I guess like it okay. It kind of makes sense in a way.
What would you preach,
openly atheist.
What would you preach though?
What
I don't know.
That's a good point.
Is it Unitarian?
I don't know. I don't.
In the beginning,
the only thing
the God that does not exist said, "Let there be light," and there was no light.
The only thing I do with this, the only thing I do with them is I praise them for not being absolute assholes.
Ladies,
I guess you just have the community of the church, and you kind of have that be the crutch and.
Call it a community then, though. Call it a community. Don't call it a church.
Exactly. I don't get that either.
Don't call yourself a pastor of an atheist pastor
I'm pretty
of a
sure
church.
that she started out as a Christian and then when she was a preacher became an atheist and then just kept doing it, but just dropped as much of the God stuff as she could.
She's a motivational speaker.
Communism.
Yeah,
she's a motivational speaker.
Much.
At a community.
There is no word.
But like in our Pride Parade, they're right after the United Churches are right after the bikers. So
well, they are pretty accepting. I'll give them that though.
I would love to talk to her. Do you know a way to reach out to her?
I know that she's in one of the United Churches in Toronto.
You don't know her name?
No, it just look up atheist preacher or whatever in Toronto. She'll come up. Yeah,
there's probably 10 bazillion articles by some Christian on her. Like, let's be honest.
A lot of that.
Oh wait, is this the one I read? Is this the atheist? I think I know her.
Maybe. I think that either you or Paul or maybe Paula Gia or someone.
I reached out to her.
I'm pretty sure
before.
someone in the GDC has.
Greta Vosper.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard, and there's been a couple.
What are you doing, Greta? Yeah. What are you doing, Greta?
There's a couple of churches that
Greta.
have atheist preachers that I've talked to.
We're gonna have to go up to Canada and break Greta's kneecaps.
It's like I'm a Catholic agnostic.
Actually, funny thing, people have been trying to do this like shift towards more the Catholic being more like a Jewish thing, where it's like an ethnicity, but I don't think that's working out very well. I don't know. I've heard about this, but I mean, I grew up Catholic and
Catholic ethnicity. No,
I mean, our United Church and our Catholics might as well just pretty much be atheists.
Hang on, let me think about this. I mean, the Vatican is considered its own country, so if you're born in the Vatican, does that make you Catholic?
It makes you not safe to play around children.
Well, even as a child,
Dean Esme going to get spun for that one.
Fuck you, Dean Esme.
You have to be baptized though in order to be Catholic and to a Baptist family, or not Baptist, to a Catholic family. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
they christen though. They don't baptize. They christen, right?
No, they baptize.
No, they baptize.
They baptize.
Who christens?
But before my sister.
I see what you did there.
I don't know.
I am part of the great Catholic race.
Hello, you NZ hunk you.
Oh, thank you.
I thought a christening was just something along the lines of when you like either give the name of a baby to something or the what's that called? What is it called when you name the baby? The naming ceremony.
Christening.
Is that the christening? That's a christening, right?
Isn't it a dumb thing to like break off from another church about? It's like you dunk your people? Oh hell no, we can't have any part of that. Like, is that really a reason to go and create your own denomination? I
mean, there are churches where they're called dunkards, where they just shove you in the water for baptism.
I was baptized. This is no lie. I was baptized in our pastor's swimming pool.
What?
Seriously.
I've been baptized 4 times.
It was in a swimming pool. Now I've been baptized twice. One time was like for real, like in a baptism well, like at the Baptist church. That's when I broke off and went on my own. But at the church that I grew up in, when I was 11 years old, we lined up, me, my brother, and then like 4 other kids. But we lined up in the shallow end of the pool, and he'd call you over, and you get in this like little floaty ring. It almost looked like a noodle. And I'm sitting there thinking, did they have these back then? And then just right up.
I was baptized one time in a Baptist church. I was baptized twice in Pentecostal churches and one time in a Presbyterian church.
What?
I only got baptized once as a baby, so I don't really remember it. But there's a picture of me crying while I'm having a big jug of water poured over my face. So
yeah, it's really awkward because then you have clothes on and you have to get out with the clothes on, and it's really awkward.
Right,
it's just very awkward.
Your jeans sticking to your legs. But we always had in a couple of them we had these weird gowns they put over your clothes.
Yeah, that's what I had to wear a gown. Yeah, and the pastor gets in with those waiter boots on, knee high.
Like he's going shrimping or something.
Yeah.
It was great.
When I got baptized though, it was fully submerged. There could not be any part of you above water. They made sure you were under. I felt my back touch the bottom of the baptismal.
Is God going to care? Is God going to say, "Hey, look at you got a pimple sticking out of the water. You're fucked."
It's look, as long as we're doing this in a pool, why can't you just go to the diving board and grab me and choke slam me into the?
It's kind of like this. It's kind of like the story of. It's kind of like the story of Achilles. Unless you are fully dunked, then that one little part of you isn't blessed, and somebody can hit you with a poisoned arrow and kill you.
The dark of Satan.
I can just imagine it. It's like some kind of WWE announcer. It's he's coming off the top rope in the name of Jesus.
Did y'all see? Have you seen the videos of Kent Hovind baptizing people in that mud pit at Dinosaur Adventureland?
Oh, good God!
No, not. But
can you imagine? Can you imagine going to heaven and Saint Peter looking at you and being like, "This is the guy that got baptized at Dinosaur Adventureland by Kent Hovind in mud."
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes, John the Baptist is probably up there going, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah. Oh no, they're not the Twinkie.
Hey, Terry.
Yes,
I'm here.
G'day, mate.
Go for it, Terry. What you got for us?
I don't know. I was caught up in a few other different streams, and I'm nearly all talked out.
Dude,
to be fair, I personally came here because I heard I would get a trophy for participating in this conversation.
You get a free Twinkie.
You get a trophy.
I've come to the conclusion I've got to start working out how to prove that I'm real.
Good luck with that. I've been trying to figure that out for ages.
It's impossible.
Just go up to someone who thinks you aren't, or who doesn't believe you're real, and slap them in the face.
Actually,
empirical evidence. There you go.
Whoever doesn't believe you're real, I wish I had that kind of time. I wish I had the kind of time to be able to sit around and go, you know what? I'm so bored. I'm just gonna go around thinking that people aren't real. You're not real. You're not real.
You also forget that these people are super high off of just whatever they can find. So
they're super dumb.
I forget which I forget which razor it is, and I'm sure that Steve probably knows. But it was made by a scientist, and it basically says that which cannot be discovered through experiment is not worth debating.
Newton's flaming.
Yes, Newton's flaming laser sword.
Newton's flaming laser. Yeah.
I think it was a Venus.
What a cool name for it, right? Newton's.
I was even going to take a photo of myself in the mirror and see if that'd help.
There you go. That'll work.
It's all a perception of what you see.
How do you know you're not a Twinkie in a vat?
Yeah, how do you know?
I probably am.
Were you there?
It depends. It depends if you accept the epistemic closure principle or not.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're fine.
I mean, honestly,
I've been talking, so
I think you were muted for a while.
Yeah, I was dealing with sugar technical difficulties. My cream was coming out of the top of my head.
Yeah, don't get any cream on your mic. Don't get any cream on your mic.
I try not to. Yeah, good job, Kyle. I got plenty of cream for you. Let me show you.
Oh, I know.
God.
Did you
I'm well aware.
hit your head or something, Team Skeptic? It looks like you've.
No, actually, in my first live stream, Terry Davies, he took a big old bite of me.
Dude, you look like you're jaundiced.
Are you a bank robber, Twinkie?
Don't tell anybody, please.
What's with the mask?
He looks more like a minion.
Yes, I'm a bandit Twinkie. I got out of there. I got out of there as fast as I
It
could.
looks like a minion bank robber.
Well, I had to take a bite. I had to take a bite to see if you were fresh.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, this is getting really weird. This is getting really weird.
Team, I would definitely have your liver function checked because I'm telling you, you're looking a little yellow there, buddy.
Oh man,
you're jaundiced.
Jaundiced, yeah, you're jaundiced.
What? Really? If I was any other color, there would be a problem.
Team Skeptic, what program are you using to do that?
This one's currently Mindshow, but we're using me and one of the developers who's one of my subs. We're working with another VR company called Flipside, and we're going to try to do even more than this, have like media stuff going on in the background where I can control it and do like my reaction videos and stuff like that, all in VR.
What a time to be alive.
Oh, it's amazing. I love this shit.
That is awesome.
But I have a question though. Like, out of all the things you could be in virtual reality, why would you pick a Twinkie?
Well, in Mindshow, it's kind of limited to some characters. This one just happens to be the funniest looking.
So, now wait a minute. So are you like submerged right now? I mean, do you have like the gloves and the VR glasses? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a full. Not the gloves. It's controllers, but you can.
Controllers.
Still,
Okay.
You don't see the person behind the curtain.
Don't tell them.
Yeah, it's pretty tricky.
I can't see any strings though.
What glasses do you use?
HTC Vive. They're badass, man. I love this.
Well, like, what do you see when you're looking into like what do you see now that we're just hanging out? Like, do you just see the hangout, or?
Well, let me show you what I see.
Damn, those are expensive, dude. Those are
Green.
virtual reality glasses.
Green. Green. Green everywhere.
And blue.
I'm in a green. Oh yeah, and blue up there.
Dude, how much were your glasses, man? Because the cheapest one I found is $500 for that.
I bought these were like 800. I have
Jesus Christ.
They can track my eyes on the inside.
Oh, that's crazy.
Is that why like your character's blinking and like looking around and stuff?
And wait a minute, you're from the glasses. It looks like a green screen.
Yep.
Get out.
There you go. Hey, no, you want here? You want to see what it looks like? It's real easy for me to fix that real quick for you. Just turn it off my spectator mode.
Yeah. This is really cool.
This is not going to get me. Is it?
That's what it looks like to me. Can you see that?
No.
Oh, great. Oh, you know why? I know why. Because I couldn't.
So easily.
Can you see us like in the video?
No, I can't.
A Twinkie.
A Twinkie working on shit.
So what's the point of being submerged in VR if you don't see anything?
Well, no, that's only through this one. That's only through this program right here.
Oh.
I'm fixing it for you right now, guys. Oh,
what the hell?
I don't know what's going on there.
Watching the Twinkie spaz out, I think, is the best part.
That's
of the
where
stream.
I'm at right there. That's what it looks like to me.
Oh. That would be blinding. How would you stare at that for very long?
Well, with my eyes closed as much as possible, I guess.
But don't you blink though?
No, yeah, I do. I don't just stare at it nonstop.
No, I mean if you close your eyes though, your avatar closes your eyes, right?
Oh no, well, no, I think I have it set to where it doesn't maintain the same pose for more than a second. So you see how my feet are moving and stuff. Am I glitching out or am I looking okay?
You're glitching. Not much.
Ah.
Oh, there you go. Wow, that's disturbing.
And I can do different faces. So
I don't know what to make of this.
This is when I call people fucking idiots.
I tried something like that with face rig, but it didn't work out too well.
Oh,
and
that's
the
a
heat
glitch
tracking
farm.
camera.
Yeah, that's just bizarre.
That face rig stuff is really, I can't believe it like actually can track your face so well.
My question about Jesus is, will he accept Twinkies if I ask for forgiveness?
Well, if you have the sentience to ask for forgiveness, I mean.
Well, you do believe I exist, yes?
Well, that's another thing entirely.
No, I have it on good authority from Kent Hove, and Twinkies cannot be saved. Sorry.
Oh.
Now, if you're a ding dong,
fuck that guy.
maybe.
No.
I also had something from Kent Hovind where he said that you don't have to pay your taxes. So
yeah, they're down. So
Yeah. Just mail whatever you want around. You can do whatever you want. Like mail bombs to people.
You know. So anyways, this is going on for 3 hours, guys. So we're gonna have to wrap it up. Last thing, I do want to dye my hair. So what do you guys think?
No.
Yeah,
well, I need to get a trim because I'm having, like.
I think you should just do the touch of gray.
Oh God.
No. Now what happened?
Shit, I forgot what I was going to talk about.
I bought a new pillowcase, and it's cotton, and now I'm getting these little fucking cotton things in my hair and knotting and causing it to fall out. Okay, that was a bad idea. So now I got to go find a silk one or something. It's driving me nuts. It's little cotton balls. How do you guys do it? Come on, you're the experts here.
Hey, I'm cutting my hair.
That problem.
I would
thoughts and prayers.
I would cut it, Steve. Like
I would cut it.
I'm not cutting my hair. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I can't help you here, Steve.
This is my strength and my wisdom.
Very much like yours.
Steve,
if I cut my hair, I become like every other dumbass.
I think there needs to be some kind of a challenge that results in you cutting your hair if we reach a goal or something.
No, but I don't want to cut my hair, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I've waited my entire life to let my hair grow out. You think I'm gonna let fucking challenge let me cut my hair?
That's the exact same situation I'm in. I've let my hair grow out for 2.5 years now, and I'd never let it grow out before then.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna cut it and just donate. Yeah, I don't want to cut it, but it's gotten some food. It ruined some really good food for me because it got on a piece, and then I threw that piece away.
What the fuck are you doing with it? Where it's getting your food?
My hair will fall out a little bit. It get knocked, but I don't really put it on.
I just eat, man. I don't look at
anything, but
So like the hair is just right in front of your face, and you're just chomping it down, just trying to go at it.
No,
I don't know. I find that
when you get that one hair, you're eating like a sandwich, and you get that one hair from the side that's in your mouth, and you don't want to break it, so you stop chewing and you slowly pull it out.
I think it's worse when you have the moustache and like it gets just that little bit too long, and it starts like tickling your lip.
I have an idea. Let's do this, Steve.
I need a dichotomy. He has the short hair, I have the long hair.
Let's do this. Let's get in touch with Brittany Simon, and let's do a show where she comes to you and gives you a makeover live on the Non Sequitur show.
I don't think she does hair.
She's all the time sporting like different hairstyles and colors.
I mean, I've asked her about this before. I mean,
well, either way, we can get you to a salon or a stylist, and you take a camera with you, and we can watch it live. Huh?
Well, I would just say that Brittany's been really, really busy. I've talked about the man on the street stuff, and she doesn't think she would have time. But she might have time for that because I mean we head out for a couple hours every so often, so we would just be going to the salon, and she filmed it.
Let's get this in.
I sent Kyle pictures of me last time I went to the salon.
Go there, but just go there and tell the whoever the salon person is. Maybe we can call ahead of time, but let them be a blank canvas for them. Let them do whatever they think is.
Well, why they don't cut more than a 1/4 inch off or something.
Sure, but I mean, like color-wise, style, all that stuff. Let them.
Yeah, that's fine. But they would probably want to do a keratin treatment, and those are very expensive, or even a Brazilian blowout.
We can cover that. Just you just gotta be willing to let the person
do their work.
Yeah, let them do the work.
I might be down for something like that.
Cool.
I think you should dye it like a strawberry blonde.
I'm kicking you.
Then you could just put your hands and wave your hair like this.
No, I'm going like a golden blonde.
Then from then on out, Richard Carey will be like, Steve McRae's got a ridiculous position, but god damn, have you seen how good his hair looks?
Freaking awesome.
Like that hairdo would augment your arguments very well.
I think one day you two need to show up where just Kyle dyes his hair like Steve and Steve dyes his hair like Kyle and just show up without warning, just on stream.
I'll have to lose 3/4 of mine first.
Yeah, he's got a full head of hair. I don't. I want to keep what I got left, even though it's falling out at an exponential rate.
I can just get a bald cap and a mop.
I'll have no hair in the next 4 years.
Hot glue it to the sides.
I don't see this lasting more than 4 more years. It falls out frequently because it's so long and knotted. because, like I said, I need to get a better pillowcase. But
at least,
I'm constantly combing it out. I'm constantly getting knots out. So I do take care of it and condition it. But it just, for some reason, it's just old hair.
at least you have the beard to sort of augment that. So if you do fully go bald, you've still got the facial hair to sort of.
Yeah, I'm going to keep that. Yeah, I'm going to keep that. So if I shave my head, then yeah.
Just cut it off and put it on your head.
Cut the beard off.
God damn, that's savage.
Yeah. What am I going to do? Next time I shave my pubes, I'm going to save it for emergencies in case, I got to put it back on. Hey,
I have.
And yes, I manscape. What is it?
Go ahead.
Everybody should.
Yes, agreed. I Twinkie-scape. I cut around my Twinkie.
You cut around your Twinkie and your ding dongs?
On Saturday, April the 27th in Dallas, Texas. That is the next Faithless Forum. If you guys are not busy, make sure that you go. I will be a speaker at Faithless Forum. So,
are you gonna be in Dallas?
Yes.
What the fuck, man? You better fucking come by, man. You know I'm in Dallas. I'm downtown.
Well,
I'm coming down.
Come out to Faithless Forum, and then we'll paint the town red.
I'll buy some plane tickets for it. Just
2 hours away from you.
Yeah, let's do it. Where's it? Do you know where it's gonna be held at?
Not yet. That information will be released as we get closer. But just the date right now is April the 27th.
All right, I'll see you guys then for sure.
That's Easter weekend, isn't it?
I don't care. I don't celebrate. I celebrate privately with the Twinkies.
Yeah.
The Twinkies keep to themselves in their culture.
I celebrate with Cadbury eggs.
Yeah.
And Peeps.
Oh, yeah, and Peeps. Those are my favorite. I love you, Peeps.
Peeps are amazing.
All right. So, anyways, I appreciate this, guys. I do take your feedback. I'm going to try to write this all down. I took some mental notes and kind of get into my blog, but I still got some other work to be taken care of. So, any last minute things you got to add, or?
Oh, I just realized I didn't even talk about why I came on here for a second. Talk about tomorrow's debate, which is going to be interesting.
Oh, take 30 seconds and show that one out, because I guess you liked my description of tomorrow's debate.
Oh, well, I mean, I found this guy on Reddit. We went off. He was trying to defend. He was saying the Iraq War was, a good thing because it made Iraq more stable. And I just told him he was an idiot.
No, it told him to stabilize the area. That's not even controversial.
Well, I taken courses.
Yeah, they all got destabilized because Saddam
exactly.
was keeping them together. Yeah.
I mean, I've been literally all day. All I've been doing is going on the National Archives website and trying to find sources and just putting them away and making sure I got my.
That's a dumb argument.
Yeah, that is a dumb argument. That's one thing that's not even that contentious, because people can argue about the reasons we went to war and stuff like that, and should we or should we not. But I never heard anybody say that Saddam didn't keep the
even
the Sunnis and everybody else.
Yeah, it was bizarre. Like he also had some other view where he was like, oh man, imperialism's actually good because under imperialism Japan had anime or something, where it was like he was trying to say that American imperialism is good because in Japan when MacArthur was.
What the fuck are we getting ourselves into tomorrow?
I don't know who this guy is. I just got into a huge argument with
Kyle, you scheduled this. This is all on you. I didn't even know what to make of it when I was
honestly, it's my fault. It's my fault.
People were laughing their ass off, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
That would be a really interesting debate to hear. Now the Japanese and anime, I don't know about that. That's the first time I'm hearing about Japanese anime and imperialism.
I've never heard that before.
I've just got this image of this one dude sitting in his computer really into the fact yes, America should invade everywhere because when we invaded Japan we got anime. That's why we need to invade everywhere else.
You should just need more cartoons. The Japanese anime destabilized the Middle East.
Didn't they find a bunch of anime on Osama bin Laden's computer or something?
There was a lot of porn. There's a lot of porn in that.
No, that was Afghanistan animation.
All right, well, let's leave it there. I'm going to go down the line and ask you guys, Japanese anime, cartoon or not cartoon?
That's
I'm gonna put you on the spot
a cartoon.
here.
It's a cartoon.
Okay.
Not a cartoon.
Team Skeptic, not a cartoon. Captain.
Depends on what the anime is. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I'm going with all or nothing here. Pick a side. Don't be agnostic on this. What's wrong?
True anime. True anime.
True anime.
Like coming from Japan.
Okay. Lines and colors. Cartoon.
No.
Okay, Kyle, what do you think?
I think it's scary.
Jerry, you want to weigh in?
We should. I'll introduce you to some.
Now, I love some anime. Like for instance, Howl's Moving Castle is probably one of my most favorite movies ever, but it's still a cartoon.
Yeah,
I saw somebody sent me a clip of an anime whenever I first said that anime is frightening. I then started getting all of the frightening, like really frightening. There was one where it was a parent that I'm trying to think if I'm going to say this right, but anyway, the dog ate the owner and became like, it's so bizarre. Anyway, something ate something else that's not supposed to be eaten, and it's a cartoon, so that makes it even like freakier. I'm used to like Ren and Stimpy and South Park.
I remember Stimpy. Stimpy. Want to play Garden? Stimpy.
Well, Ren and Stimpy was kind of horrifying in some ways, to be honest.
Yo, I don't know how they got past
I have 2 words. Ninja Scroll. Okay, just go watch Ninja Scroll. Make sure there are no small children around when you do.
Fuck no.
All right. Yes. Sorry to hate to break it to the anime fans, but anime is Japanese cartoons.
I'm going to go even further and say Naruto is anime.
What do they think it is though? If it's not a Japanese cartoon, what do they think?
It's a graphic story.
Get out of here.
No. That's
graphic.
That is manga.
Yeah, I'd have to bring my son in on this because he's more of I've had this argument with him before, and he's convinced me it's not a cartoon.
Well, South Park is like a graphic comedy then.
Yeah, what the hell? South Park is cartoon.
Anime is short for Japanese animation. Animation is what Walt Disney does.
I just say it's like
Finding Nemo a cartoon?
I have a yes. I have a
absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
I have a random question too before we go. Has anyone ever read the book The Alchemist?
I don't read books.
The Alchemist.
Oh, is that like one of the top 10
reading
books? I think that's something on required reading, but I never read it. But
let me tell you. Let me tell you something. If you ever read a book, man, that book will have you like taking on the world when you get done with it. It was amazing. It was amazing. So if you're looking for a book to read, everyone, read The Alchemist.
All right, I'm going to recommend something a little more basic along those lines. The Phantom Toll Booth.
Could I recommend a book?
No.
Do you read?
Yeah, I do read actually.
Wait, in English?
The word Kiwi.
Yes. No. It's an actual. I think it's an American, or maybe it might be Australian. It's called The Day My Bum Went Psycho, and it's
yeah, that's Australian.
And it's very
autobiography.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a book that's very near and dear to my heart by Andy Griffith.
That's a recap of Kyle's vacation.
I mean, wonderful if you got. Here's my thing. If you guys want a fun romp, I've heard Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad is like really fun and just really uplifting to read, in my opinion, obviously.
I'll show you a picture from this weekend.
We'll leave with that. Show us a picture and then we're gonna leave with that.
This is my man and a little dog.
I can't see anything but green.
Oh, that's adorable.
Oh.
The dog looks good too.
All right. Well, with that, good night, guys. I'm going to bed.